Story 1. Hello, my friends, and with our first story. So, a few years ago, my now ex-wife filed a false restraining order against me. She was living with her boyfriend as we were getting a divorce and had decided that a false restraining order was an excellent way to be awarded full possession of the car that I had purchased. Now we only had one key to the car, and she was in possession of both the key and the vehicle. This is important for later. Now, I was exceedingly upset that she had knowingly filed a false restraining order, and upon being served, I immediately submitted my appeal and request for a hearing. I contacted my company, had the prints of all my Department of Transportation GPS logs, as well as company internal vehicle tracker data. I also printed out my personal GPS tracking data from the navigation system I was using. So not only did I have accredited logs showing exactly where I was, or more importantly, where I was not. I also had two very detailed systems information showing my exact speed, cardinal direction, and other information recorded in 2-minute and 30-second intervals. After I compiled my entire body of evidence, I wrote a 3-page testimony to read in court to assist in explaining the entirety of the data as well as present my side of the appeal. Almost 30 days passes, and I realize that, upon adjournment of the case, there's a chance that I'll be able to reach my vehicle before my ex does. Now, with this in mind, I decided to contact the dealership from which I purchased the vehicle and acquired a second key. Now, as we only received one key when we purchased the vehicle, I knew she wouldn't expect me to be able to drive away with it. So fast forward a few days to the court date. I had driven across 2 states to attend this court judgment appeal with all my paperwork, written testimony, and the key to the vehicle. I arrive approximately 4 hours prior to the hearing time and patiently wait for the magic moment to come, and I got bad news. It was extremely anticlimactic. She was a no-show. The judge ruled in my favor and the restraining order was dismissed. So the judge then asked if I had anything further for the courts, and if not, I was free to go. So I very politely asked, "Your Honor, is it my understanding that the restraining order is lifted?" The judge replies, "Yes." I then asked, "So am I at this time able to retrieve my vehicle?" The judge then tells me, as the judge of the courtroom, I'm unable to provide you with any form of legal advice. Now, I was about to apologize when the judge then said, "However, if you find a seat in the back of my courtroom, I will get someone to provide you with a signed order of dismissal for the restraining order. If you were to be questioned by law enforcement for any reason regarding property or contact, it's best to have this documentation on your person, as the cancellation of the order might not reach the police system until close of business today." Now, the way in which the judge had worded her response was very clear in intent. She could not specifically tell me that I was good to retrieve my vehicle, but she was taking the extra time to provide me with all the paperwork that gave me the legal opportunity to retrieve my vehicle. So I sat down, and after nearly 10 minutes, the court official that was designated with the task of typing and printing the paperwork got the judge's signature on it and brought it to me as I turned to leave the courtroom. The judge calls out to me, "Yes, Your Honor. Good luck." So at this point, I had to formulate a plan. See, as the ex-wife had not been present for the court proceedings, neither was my vehicle. Now I have the address for her boyfriend's parents' house, as it was all over the initial restraining orders list of protected properties. I decided to utilize Uber to go to the address, and check if the vehicle was present at the address. So upon starting the trip, I requested that the Uber driver wait for me at the address after dropping me off, giving her a quick summary of my circumstances and plan to ensure that I had a witness present for the intended retrieval of my vehicle. Quite simply, to ensure that no false allegations of fictitious activities during the recovery of said vehicle would have a leg to stand upon in court. Now, the lady Uber driver was sympathetic to my cause and agreed, even going as far as to give me her personal contact information in the event that I required her for future court appearances. Now, upon the arrival at the address, the vehicle was indeed present. The lady waits until I acquired the vehicle, left the premises, and then she followed me for about 2 miles to witness that I had left the property completely. And then she went on her way. Bless that lady, she was a saint. So I make it about half an hour away and my phone rings. I answer it, and it was my ex-wife's boyfriend. And as you can imagine, he was not happy. He starts to swear at me, making random insulting comments, which I entirely brushed off. And then he makes a very large, unintelligent mistake. He said, "If I ever see you again here or anywhere, I will blow your head off. Count yourself dead." Now, I'm a veteran, and I don't take very kindly on threats to my life. I was upset at him. I was upset at her. And I was just handed a gift-wrapped means of complete and utter destructive revenge. I immediately hung up with him and dialed 911 to report a verbal threat on my life. I go to the parking lot of the local big box store to meet the responding officer and ensured that I didn't leave until I had a case number attached, written statement, and the reporting officer's identification information. I completed my trip to my home state, and the following Monday, as this all happened on Friday, I went to my local courthouse and filed for an emergency restraining order. The judge that was available to hear my case was, interestingly enough, the same judge handling the divorce. She listened to the case I provided, reviewed the police information I provided, and then she issued the requested restraining order. Now, this doesn't sound like pro-revenge, does it? Well, my ex-wife was living with the guy in his parents' basement. The restraining order issued by the judge protected myself, my property, and my spouse from him. See, we were still legally married, so I was legally able to list her as my protected party when the restraining order was served. He could not be within 600 feet of my ex-wife. And as she lived with him in his parents' basement, he wasn't the one who had to leave. She was. But she no longer had my vehicle, so she lost her brand new job. She also wasn't able to get to school as her commute was quite long by public transit, so she failed her college course, but was stuck with the student loans for it anyway. So she was now homeless, a vehicle-less job, less kicked out of her college for non-attendance penniless, as she was atrociously bad with finances. And to top it all off, she was nearly 4 months pregnant with his kid. So the moral of the story, don't piss off a veteran. I don't want to play games. I will go out of my way to avoid playing games. I will bend over backwards to make sure that I don't have to play games. But if you forced my hand into playing aforementioned games, I will not be the one that loses the game, which is something I told her verbatim on our third or fourth date, but I guess she forgot. Guys, what an absolute savage revenge. Listen, the restraining order on the wife's boyfriend that led to her downfall was absolutely brilliant. Play them games, win them prizes, guys. OPI does come into the comment section to give details about what happened after, and it's some juicy, juicy stuff, guys. So listen up now, my wife did not show up to the next 2 divorce court dates as she had no vehicle and was maybe 2 or 3 states away at the time. It went into judge mediation, which she did so far, and she was very nasty. That's a whole story in and of itself, though. So the ex refused to do any mediation, and eventually the judge became the mediator. So on her final court date, the judge asked us what we both want and talked to us about our request on the floor, and then went to chambers to make her decision. So I came to court with my entire credit history, printed with every debt I wanted, split highlighted, as well as a few pages that I had written so I could explain to the judge why I felt it was appropriate to split these specific debts. I also had paperwork I wanted the judge to sign, which would have my ex removed from any financial claim in the vehicle, as I was the one who filed for the divorce. I spoke first, and I got nearly everything I asked for when it was my ex's turn. It wasn't very close to the following. X says I want $5,000 for any property of mine that might have been damaged, stolen, or sold throughout the course of the relationship. The judge then says, "Okay, please provide the receipts to the bailiff for me to review in the chambers." The ex said, "I don't have any receipts." The judge then says, "If you have no receipts, I have no ability to order a reimbursement. What else are you asking for?" X then goes, "I would like for Oppie to pay my student loans since it was Opie's fault that I had to quit college." The judge then said, "You were in college less than 6 months. You started college after leaving your spouse, and it wouldn't do the community, the courts, nor your spouse any benefit for me to do that. What else are you asking for?" My ex then goes on and says, "Well, I want the restraining order to be lifted. I haven't been able to see my boyfriend in a few months because of it." The judge says this is a divorce settlement hearing, not a restraining order appeal hearing. I cannot make any ruling in regards to that order in the court at this time. When I do come back from chambers, the divorce will be finalized. You will no longer be the spouse, and the order will no longer be applicable anyway. What else are you asking for? I would like alimony to the fullest amount allowed. My spouse has completely ruined my financial situation and has a full-time job, so was responsible for getting me back on my feet. The judge then said, "You mentioned you have or you had a boyfriend." My ex then said, "Yes, Your Honor, I have a boyfriend." This restraining order made it so I couldn't live with him anymore. The judge then said, "So you were romantically cohabiting with your boyfriend prior to the order being served?" So my ex then replied, "Yes, and that was a huge mistake." The judge then says, "Under the laws of the state, redacted. Since you have admitted to the court that you romantically cohabitate extramarital, you are not eligible for any alimony, and this court cannot order your ex to provide you any financial assistance." So in conclusion, I got everything I asked for, and the ex was making stupid demands, and she was entirely shut down by the judge. I had to give the ex 3 boxes of her property and nothing else. Almost 3 years of marriage, and all she walked away from it were with 2 boxes of random things and 1 box that had her grandmother's dinnerware and several $1,000s of debt. My friend's Opie coming into the comments and providing us with the details of the court hearing is the cherry on top of this beautiful revenge. I wish I could have been there to see the ex-wife's face as the judge denied her request for alimony. Oh my goodness. She literally got nothing. Now to start, this is about the company I worked for, and a trip I took because I had to wire a building for a computer network because the building owner wouldn't. Our company was moving a remote site to a new building, and as the IT guy for the company, I was asked to look at the new building and set up some network parts. Now, the landlord refused to put in any low voltage lines and we got quotes, but they were thousands of dollars. Answer me my car and 4 boxes of Cat 6 cable. Now it's about an 8-hour drive and I was doing about 30 drops, not a ton, but still a few days worth of work and someplace that's already built up. And it's a drop ceiling with insulation on top, messy and itchy work. So the story day one, we get there Monday morning at the start of the month. Now, it's actually a cool summer morning and we're from the south, so nobody notices the AC not working for about an hour. Slowly, the building begins, heating up. It gets to 80 degrees by noon, 85 degrees by 3 p.m. There are rooms with floor to ceiling. Windows are greenhouses. It's an absolutely miserable time. We've been told by the workers still on site that the leasing company was told that there was no AC in the building 3 weeks ago. The other thing is there are still workers on site. The building isn't completed so much for being ready for a handover on day one. Day two, we're getting agitated. It's about 80 degrees in the AM when we first walk in, and it's sweltering. The other guy that came in with me is the facilities manager. He's screaming at people over the phone to fix the AC. We're all exhausted from the heat by 3 p.m. I found a 4-foot hole in the ducts when I was opening the ceiling tile. The AC was blowing, but there was no cold air. We are told the compressor is broken. Day three, more of the same. It's a miserable morning. I'm finally getting the last lines punched in on the patch panel. The AC guys arrive at about 10 a.m. They finally fixed the unit at 2 p.m. We asked them what they did. They said a lot of things. We again said, "What did you do?" And the reply was, "We can't tell the tenants." Now that was a red flag alert. We contacted our realtor and she said she'd look into what was done. Now she sent me an email later that night that says that they changed the refrigerant from R22 to R410A. I then told the facilities guy, "No way, dude, that's like putting gas in a diesel motor." They would have to change out the entire system. They didn't do that in 4 hours. They basically duct taped and WD-40 that thing back together, and it'll run poorly for about a month or so, and then give out, and we would be stuck with a replacement. Day number 4, there's still no running water system. Some areas still workers on site, and the AC can't keep up with a noonday sun, and it still hits around about 80 degrees by the end of the day. The AC runs continuously. We're packing up all the stuff. We moved, and we're moving out. I then noticed that all the fire sprinklers look like they've been moved, and the metal protection around the drop tile has fallen to the floor. I also noticed that the sprinklers were no longer protruding from the tiles in places and in others. They're quite a bit lower than they were. Yep, the AC fools stood on the fire sprinklers to fix their lousy ductwork. Now we are looking for a friendly way out. We contact the landlord and say, "You haven't delivered a finished building. We're moving out. The lease is broken." The landlord then has a 36-page lease. The landlord won't let us out of the lease, and we're locked in for 5 years. This is not starting off well. So we then get in contact with a corporate lawyer and the realtor, and they both agree that we're kind of screwed. We're actually desperate for any way out. I start looking at the fire system as I used to run all kinds of low voltage lines, fire security, etc., and there is no fire panel in our portion of the building. No smoke detectors are hooked up to anything, which are more red flags. One of our employees that was moving the heavy gear says, "Oh yeah, I meant to mention that I never saw any building permits anywhere." Ding, ding, ding. They did this build out, including demolition, running new plumbing and power lines and destroying the fire system without a city permit. Cue the call to the city inspector's office. Day number 5. Now, I wasn't here for this part, but the facilities manager told me this. He said the city inspector pulled the permits for the building and there weren't any. He finds multiple violations of city code red tagged our area and removed the certificate of occupancy. When I told him to check out the fire system, like you said, he just goes, "Oh, no, 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 I have to make a call." He then calls the fire marshal. Day number 8, the fire marshal arrives on scene. They find no active alarm system in our portion of the building, which is another red flag. They then find a sprinkler riser for the entire building in the area, and no water pressure. He then condemned the entire building, so basically they wouldn't let us out of the building because we signed a lease, even though they never delivered a building in any semblance of working order. I called the building inspector, got them smoked, who then called the fire marshal, who then condemned the entire building. They are still trying to fight us over it, but we're pushing them for not only refunding our deposit and the rent, which they've already done, but for the time spent. moving the gear in and out and all the wiring. Now, our lawyer says that they don't have a leg to stand on, and he's happy for them to pay his fees as well. Okay, my friends, first off, that sounded like a horrendous 5 days of being inside a building with no AC. You guys know how I love reading stories about shady landlords getting their just desserts? No, guys, having the building condemned isn't enough. The landlord deserves to have all of his properties taken away. Doing this without a permit and not being up to the fire code is literally putting people in danger. Like if he does this to commercial buildings, who knows what this guy does to people who rent houses, condos, apartments, or whatever. So I have a really bad leg. I've had 13 surgeries. It's a long story. And I just started at a new school. So after the first 3 weeks, I had to go in for another procedure on my leg. Not that big a deal to me. I've been here before. Upon my return, I had documentation of my restrictions as well as special amenities that were required. So the victory was that I needed extra time to get from class to class. I also must have someone escort me, and I needed unrestricted access to the elevator. Now, all of these got me recurring problems, such as constant harassment by teachers and security about my being in the halls during class time. And why was my cousin out to these first two were annoying, but easy enough to deal with. Now, the real issue was the elevator. I was told multiple times that for security issues I could not have a personal key due to it, sharing the same functionality with the interior door keys. I would have never had any issues with this. As I was told, there would always be someone on the same floor as my classes to open the elevator for me. This, of course, was untrue about 75% of the time. The lack of elevator access meant that I was always stuck in the halls when other students were going class to class. I was constantly late due to having to wait for someone to come by and open the door for the elevator. This also meant that I would sometimes be stuck waiting through the entire lunch period and, due to my absences, could not afford to simply go to lunch after the fact. After about 3 weeks of this, I was tired of not getting to eat lunch during lunch. So I did one of the stupidest things I could have attempted and tried to use the stairs. Now for context, I was not on crutches. I was on a full-blown walker. About halfway down, I fell hard. One of my friends found me, got someone to help pick me up, and carried me to the office. When getting to the office, they managed to get me to calm down enough to give them my mom's phone number. Now my mom is quite hot-tempered, but can keep a level head normally. When she heard that I fell, she was there in record time. When she got there, she immediately asked what happened. I told her that I was sick and tired of missing lunch from waiting for someone to open the elevator. So I tried to use the stairs, and that was a big mistake, as that set off a sour bomb-sized explosive. She immediately turns around and demanded for the principal and the VP to get their asses in here ASAP. As soon as the principal and the vice principal walked in, she started berating them in a fashion not suitable for most adults. There, let alone kids. And when the VP made an offhand remark about my condition, she physically went after the VP and was swarmed by local sheriffs that provided security for the school. We were escorted out, and after looking at the file and realizing my cousin and I had the same addresses, they figured out that I didn't actually live there. Now, my grandmother's address was listed for me as she looked after me after I left school up until around 8 p.m. She was also raising my cousin after an issue between her and my aunt. They used this as grounds to expel me as I was out of the school district and then told her I can be some other school's problem now. I was then enrolled at the school near my house and had to have yet another surgery to repair the damage that was done as the result of my fault and redo the work of the previous procedure. I had gotten multiple statements from teachers as well as my doctors, and my parents were moving forward with a lawsuit naming the VP principal and the county school board. We were contacted by a lawyer who had won multiple cases against our school board, some of which went to the state Supreme Court, and he told us he would take our case pro bono. He was getting tired of going against the board and thought a case like this would be what it took to try and fix their crap. So fast forward 9 months. I was walking out of the court with a settlement to cover all my procedures, as well as a written confirmation that the school would be going through a complete administrative overhaul and that the principal and vice principal would be let go and have their administrative credentials revoked in our state. My friends. And that brings us to another end of our /pro revenge. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. Story 2. Family didn't invite me to Christmas because it's no place for losers, my brother said. I calmly agreed and stopped funding his kids and wife. Now he's begging. My name is Baylor, and for 32 years, I've been the family ATM. Not the favorite son, not the success story they brag about at dinner parties, just the reliable one who pays the bills when everyone else comes up short. My younger brother Trevor has always been the golden child, the one with the charm and the big dreams, while I've been the one working double shifts to make sure his dreams don't turn into nightmares. It all started when we were kids. Trevor was the athlete, the popular one, the kid who could talk his way out of trouble with a smile and a joke. I was the quiet one who got good grades, worked part-time jobs in high school, and somehow always ended up covering for Trevor's mistakes. When he crashed Dad's car at 17, I gave him my summer job savings to help with the deductible. When he needed money for college applications, I worked extra shifts at the grocery store. It became a pattern that followed us into adulthood. After college, Trevor married his high school sweetheart, Jessica, and they had 2 kids, Emma and Jake. Beautiful kids, smart as whips, and I loved them like they were my own. Trevor bounced from job to job, always chasing the next big opportunity, the next get-rich-quick scheme. Jessica worked part-time as a dental hygienist, but with 2 kids and Trevor's inconsistent income, they struggled constantly. That's where I came in. Uncle Baylor, the guy who never missed a birthday, never forgot Christmas presents, and somehow always had money when the lights were about to get shut off. I worked as an IT manager for a mid-sized company, made decent money, lived modestly in a 1-bedroom apartment, and directed most of my extra income toward keeping Trevor's family afloat. The list of things I'd paid for over the years was staggering. Emma's dance classes, Jake's soccer league fees, emergency car repairs when Trevor's transmission died, groceries when the cupboards were bare, the deposit on their apartment when they got evicted from the previous one. I calculated once that over 10 years, I'd given them close to $80,000. Not loans, mind you. Gifts. Because family helps family, right? My parents, Patricia and Robert, lived comfortably on Dad's pension and Mom's part-time job at the local library. They weren't rich, but they weren't struggling either. They'd help Trevor occasionally with small amounts, but somehow the big emergencies always fell to me. Baylor is so responsible, Mom would say. He doesn't mind helping out his brother, except I was starting to mind. A lot. The breaking point began building 3 months before Christmas. Trevor called me on a Tuesday evening, his voice tight with stress. Baylor, man, I need a favor. I was sitting in my apartment, eating leftover takeout and watching Netflix after a 12-hour day debugging server issues. What's up? Jessica's hours got cut at work, and Jake needs this special equipment for his football team. It's expensive, but if he doesn't have it, he can't play. And you know how important this is to him. Jake was 11 and decent at football, but he wasn't exactly heading for the NFL. Still, I cared about the kid. How much are we talking? $500 for the gear, plus I need to cover the team fees, so maybe $800 total? I sighed. Trevor, I just covered your rent last month. I know, and I'm grateful. This is different. It's for Jake. You wouldn't want him to miss out because his dad's going through a rough patch, right? The guilt trip. Classic Trevor. I transferred the money the next day. 2 weeks later, I was scrolling through Facebook during my lunch break when I saw photos from Jessica's girls' night out. Expensive-looking restaurant, cocktails, her and 3 friends posing with plates of food that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. The photos were posted the same day I'd sent the money for Jake's football gear. When Trevor called the following month asking for help with their car insurance payment, I asked about the girls' night. Oh, that. Yeah, well, Jessica needed to blow off some steam. Work's been stressing her out. With money I sent for Jake's football? Baylor, come on. We're juggling a lot here. Sometimes we have to borrow from one thing to pay for another. It all evens out. It all evens out. That became Trevor's catchphrase whenever I questioned how my money was being spent. When I saw photos of his new fishing rod and tackle box on Instagram after I'd covered their electric bill. When Jessica posted pictures of her fresh highlights and manicure after I'd paid for Emma's school supplies. It all evens out. The pattern was so established that Trevor barely pretended anymore. He'd call, explain the crisis, name the amount needed, and expect the money to appear in his account within 24 hours. And like an idiot, I kept sending it. What made it worse was how I was treated at family gatherings. Trevor was always the center of attention, regaling everyone with stories about his latest business venture or the kids' achievements. I'd sit on the sidelines nodding politely while he took credit for providing opportunities I'd actually paid for. Jake's doing so well in football, he'd tell relatives. We invested in getting him the right equipment, and it's really paying off. Emma's dance recital was beautiful. We're so proud of her. The lessons are expensive, but it's worth it to see her shine. We invested. We're proud. Never a mention of Uncle Baylor, who made it all possible. During Thanksgiving dinner 2 months before the Christmas incident, Trevor announced his latest entrepreneurial venture. I'm starting a landscaping business, he said, gesturing with his fork. Going to be my own boss, set my own hours. I've got it all figured out. That sounds wonderful, honey, Mom said, beaming. You've always been so creative. I'd heard variations of this speech dozens of times. The food truck business that lasted 3 weeks. The online retail store that never sold anything. The personal training certification he got but never used. Each one was going to be the thing that finally made him rich and independent. The startup costs are pretty steep, though, Trevor continued, glancing in my direction. Need to get a truck, equipment, insurance. Probably looking at 15, 20,000 to get it off the ground properly. The table went quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for me to offer to bankroll Trevor's latest dream. Instead, I cut into my turkey and said, "Sounds like you'll need to save up or get a business loan." Trevor's face fell. "Yeah, well, banks are pretty strict about lending to new businesses." "For good reason," I said. "Most small businesses fail within the first year." The tension at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jessica shot me a look that could have frozen water. Mom cleared her throat and changed the subject to Emma's upcoming dance recital. After dinner, Trevor cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping with dishes. "What was that about?" he asked, his voice low and angry. "What was what about?" "You know what? The business loan comment? You've always helped before." I set down the plate I was drying and turned to face him. "Trevor, I've given you thousands of dollars over the years. Maybe it's time you figured out how to stand on your own." "Stand on my own?" His voice rose. "Easy for you to say. You don't have kids. You don't have responsibilities. I don't have kids because I've been supporting yours." The words hung in the air between us. Trevor's face flushed red. "Nobody asked you to do that. You literally ask me every month. That's different. That's emergencies. This is my future we're talking about." I dried my hands on the dish towel and headed for the door. "Your future isn't my responsibility, Trevor." That conversation marked the beginning of the end, though I didn't know it at the time. Trevor stopped calling as frequently, and when he did, there was a coldness in his voice that hadn't been there before. Jessica unfriended me on Facebook. The kids still hugged me when they saw me, but there was an awkwardness that hadn't existed before. 3 weeks before Christmas, I got a call from Mom. "Baylor, honey, we need to talk about Christmas dinner." I was at my desk at work, trying to solve a network issue that had been plaguing us for days. "What about it?" "Well, Trevor and Jessica think it might be better if we kept it small this year. Just immediate family." I blinked, not understanding. "I am immediate family." Mom sighed. "You know what I mean. Trevor and Jessica and the kids. They're feeling a little stressed about money right now, and having someone there who they owe money to. It might make things uncomfortable." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Are you uninviting me to Christmas?" "It's not that we don't want you there," Mom said quickly. "It's just that Trevor thinks it would be awkward. And you know how he gets when he's stressed. How he gets when he's stressed." "Mom, I've been keeping his family fed and housed for 10 years. And we appreciate that, sweetheart. But maybe this year you could do your own thing? Visit friends? Take a vacation?" I sat in my office chair, staring at the computer screen, trying to process what I was hearing. My own mother was disinviting me from Christmas because my financial support made my brother uncomfortable. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "Trevor owes me thousands of dollars, hasn't paid back a cent, and now I'm banned from Christmas because my presence might remind him of that fact? Baylor, please don't make this harder than it has to be." I hung up without saying goodbye. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "Trevor. Look, man, I heard Mom talk to you." "Yeah, she did." "It's nothing personal. It's just that Jessica's been really stressed about the money situation, and having you there would make it weird for everyone." "Weird for everyone or weird for you?" "Come on, don't be like that. You know how these family things go. It's supposed to be relaxed, fun. We can't relax if we're worried about you judging us or keeping track of what we owe you." I laughed, a bitter sound. "I've never once asked you to pay me back, Trevor. Not once." "I know, but it's implied, isn't it? Every time you look at us, we can see you calculating what we cost you. Maybe because you do cost me. A lot. See? That's exactly what I'm talking about. This attitude. Christmas is supposed to be about family, not about money." "Right. And apparently, there's no place for losers like me at the family table." The line went quiet. I could hear Trevor breathing, could picture him trying to figure out how to respond. "I never said you were a loser. You didn't have to." I hung up and sat in my office, staring out the window at the December sky. The company holiday party decorations sparkled around me, but I felt empty. For 10 years, I'd prioritized Trevor's family over my own life, my own future, my own happiness. And in return, I'd been labeled a burden, someone whose presence would ruin their Christmas. That evening, I made a decision that would change everything. I opened my laptop and started going through my financial records, automatic payments, bank transfers, Venmo transactions. Over the past year alone, I'd sent Trevor and Jessica $12,400 for their rent, their car payment, the kids' activities, emergency expenses that seemed to pop up every month like clockwork. I canceled every automatic payment, the ones for Emma's dance classes, the ones for Jake's sports fees, the monthly contribution to their grocery budget that Trevor had convinced me to set up because it's easier to budget when we know we can count on it. Gone. All of it. Then, I called my bank and put a block on any future transfers to Trevor's account without my explicit approval for each transaction. By the time I was done, I'd severed every financial tie that bound me to Trevor's family. It felt strange, like cutting strings that had controlled me for a decade, but it also felt liberating. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. I just went to work the next day, came home to my quiet apartment, and for the first time in years, didn't check my phone obsessively to see if Trevor needed money for some new crisis. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone, which should have been depressing, but actually felt peaceful. I cooked myself a nice dinner, watched movies, and didn't think about what Trevor's family was doing without me. I didn't send presents. I didn't call. I simply let Christmas happen without me. The first crack in Trevor's perfect little family Christmas came on December 28th. Jessica called me. Baylor? It's Jessica. I was surprised to hear from her. We hadn't spoken directly in months. Hi, Jessica. Listen, I know things have been weird lately, but we have a problem. Emma's dance studio is threatening to drop her from classes if we don't pay the balance by January 2nd. I know you usually handle that, but the payment didn't go through this month. I canceled the automatic payments. Silence on the other end of the line. What? I canceled all the automatic payments. I won't be covering Emma's dance classes anymore. But Baylor, she's been in this program for 3 years. She's finally getting good parts in the recitals. You can't just... I can. And I did. Trevor made it clear that there's no place for losers like me in your family. So I'm not part of your family anymore, which means your family expenses aren't my problem. Baylor, that's not... Trevor didn't mean it like that. Oh, how did he mean it, Jessica? She stumbled over her words, trying to find a way to explain away what couldn't be explained away. He was just stressed. You know how he gets. I know exactly how he gets. And I know exactly what he meant. Emma's dance classes are your responsibility now. We can't afford them without your help. Then I guess Emma will have to find a more affordable hobby. I hung up, feeling bad for Emma, but resolved to stick to my decision. 5 minutes later, Trevor called. What the hell, Baylor? Jessica's crying because you're cutting off Emma's dance classes. I'm cutting off everything, Trevor. All of it. You wanted a Christmas without the loser brother? Congratulations. You get a life without the loser brother, too. Come on, man. You're being petty. So we didn't invite you to one Christmas dinner. Big deal. Get over it. It's not about one dinner, Trevor. It's about 10 years of being treated like an ATM instead of a brother. We don't treat you like an ATM. I laughed. When's the last time you called me just to talk? When's the last time you asked how I was doing? When's the last time we hung out without you needing money for something? Silence. That's what I thought. Baylor, listen, I'm sorry about the Christmas thing. We can do New Year's instead. Big family dinner, just like always. With me paying for the groceries? Well, if you want to contribute... No, Trevor, I'm done contributing. To anything. Your rent, your car payment, your kids' activities, your wife's girls' nights. Done. You can't be serious. Dead serious. Figure it out yourself. The next few weeks were blissfully quiet. No emergency calls about past due bills. No last-minute requests for grocery money. No guilt trips about letting down the kids. For the first time in a decade, my bank account grew instead of shrank every month. I used the money I would have given Trevor to finally take that vacation I'd been putting off for years. I booked a week in Costa Rica, something I dreamed about but never done, because there was always some family crisis that required my funds instead. While I was lying on a beach in Tamarindo, sipping a cold beer and watching the sunset, my phone buzzed with increasingly desperate messages from Trevor. Baylor, call me. We need to talk. Dude, the mortgage company is threatening foreclosure. I need help. Baylor, please. The kids are asking why you haven't called. I read each message, felt a familiar pang of guilt, and then deleted them without responding. This was Trevor's test. Could he handle his own life without his big brother's financial safety net? The answer, apparently, was no. I came back from Costa Rica to find 23 missed calls from various family members. Mom, Dad, Trevor, Jessica, even Jessica's mother had called to tell me I needed to step up and help my brother. The first call I returned was to Mom. Baylor, thank goodness. Trevor's been trying to reach you for weeks. I know. I was on vacation. Vacation? While your brother's family is falling apart? My brother's family fell apart the day they decided I wasn't good enough to join them for Christmas. That's ancient history now, sweetheart. Trevor needs your help. They're behind on everything. The mortgage, the car payments, the kids' school fees. They might lose the house. Then maybe Trevor should get a job that pays enough to support his family. He has a job. Part-time at a sporting goods store, Mom. That's not a career. That's something teenagers do after school. You can't just abandon them. I'm not abandoning them. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. Mom sighed dramatically. I don't understand what's gotten into you. What's gotten into me is self-respect. Something I should have developed years ago. The conversation with Dad went similarly, except he tried the disappointed father approach. I raised you better than this, Baylor. Family takes care of family. I've been taking care of this family for 10 years, Dad. Where were you when Trevor needed help? We helped when we could. You helped with $50 here and there. I was sending thousands. Because you make more money. I make more money because I worked for it. I got an education, found a good job, and lived below my means. Trevor chose to coast on my generosity instead of building a career. He's trying. He's 30 years old, Dad. How long is he going to keep trying before he actually succeeds at something? Dad didn't have an answer for that. The most heartbreaking call came from Emma. She was 12 now, old enough to understand that something had changed, but not old enough to understand why. Uncle Baylor? It's Emma. Her voice was small, uncertain. It broke my heart. Hi, sweetheart. How are you? I'm okay, I guess. Mom says I can't do dance anymore because it's too expensive, and Daddy's been really sad lately. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of her disappointment. I'm sorry to hear that, Emma. Are you mad at us? The innocent question hit me like a truck. I'm not mad at you, Emma. Not at all. Then why don't you come over anymore? Jake misses you too. We used to play video games all the time. It's complicated, sweetheart. It's a grown-up problem between me and your dad. Can't you just say sorry to each other and make up? If only it were that simple. Maybe someday, Emma. After I hung up with Emma, I sat in my apartment, questioning whether I was doing the right thing. These kids didn't ask to be born into a family where their father couldn't provide for them. They didn't deserve to suffer because of the conflict between Trevor and me. But I also knew that if I caved now, nothing would change. Trevor would learn that he could treat me however he wanted, and I'd still be there to bail him out. The pattern would continue indefinitely. I had to stay strong. February brought a new wave of desperation from Trevor. He'd lost the part-time job at the sporting goods store for showing up late too often. Jessica was working extra shifts at the dental office, but it wasn't enough to cover their expenses without my monthly contributions. Trevor started showing up at my apartment building, waiting for me in the parking lot when I got home from work. Baylor, we need to talk. I saw him before he saw me and considered turning around and driving away, but that would just delay the inevitable conversation. What do you want, Trevor? I want my brother back. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his clothes were wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. For a moment, I felt sorry for him. I'm right here. No, you're not. You're angry and bitter, and you're taking it out on Jessica and the kids. I'm not taking anything out on anyone. I'm just not paying your bills anymore. Baylor, we're going to lose everything. The house, the cars, everything. Is that what you want? What I want is for you to take responsibility for your own life. I am taking responsibility. I'm looking for a better job. I'm trying to get the landscaping business off the ground. With what money? You couldn't afford to start the business when you had my financial support. How are you going to do it now? Trevor ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood when he was frustrated. I need help, Baylor. Just temporary. Just until I get back on my feet. How many times have I heard that over the past 10 years? This time is different. This time is different because I'm not falling for it anymore. Trevor's expression hardened. You know what your problem is. You're bitter because I have a family and you don't. You're alone and you're jealous. So you're trying to destroy what I've built. His words stung because there was a grain of truth in them. I was alone. I didn't have a wife or kids, but I'd made those sacrifices to support his family. You know why I don't have a family, Trevor? Because every time I saved money to buy a house, or take a woman on a nice vacation, or do anything to improve my own life, you had an emergency that required my savings. I put my life on hold for 10 years to support yours. Nobody asked you to do that. You asked me to do that. Every month, every crisis, every time you called crying about being broke. I never cried. You're crying now? Trevor wiped his eyes angrily. This isn't crying. This is frustration. This is consequences, Trevor. For the first time in your life, you're experiencing actual consequences for your choices. My choices? What about your choice to abandon your niece and nephew? The guilt trip. I'd been waiting for it. I didn't abandon Emma and Jake. I stopped enabling their father. They don't understand the difference. Then explain it to them. Tell them that Uncle Baylor isn't their personal ATM anymore. Trevor stood there for a moment, breathing heavily. Then he said the thing I knew was coming. If you don't help us, we're going to lose the house. Emma and Jake will have to change schools. Jessica might have to quit her job if we move too far away. You're going to destroy two innocent kids' lives because you're mad at me. I'm going to let you be responsible for your own family. Same thing. No, Trevor, it's not. He left after that, but I knew he'd be back. The foreclosure process takes months, and Trevor would spend every one of those months trying to guilt, manipulate, or convince me to save him one more time. March brought the divorce papers. Jessica filed for divorce and moved back in with her parents, taking Emma and Jake with her. The official reason was irreconcilable differences, but everyone in the family knew the real reason. Trevor couldn't provide for his family, and without my financial support, the whole house of cards had collapsed. Trevor called me, sobbing this time for real. Are you happy now? My wife left me. She took my kids. I'm going to lose the house. Everything's falling apart. I felt genuinely sorry for him, but I also knew that this collapse had been inevitable. I'd just been postponing it with regular infusions of cash. I'm not happy about any of this, Trevor. Then help me fix it. I can't fix your marriage. I can't fix your relationship with your kids. I can't fix the fact that you're 30 years old with no real job skills or career prospects. You could help me keep the house. If I can show Jessica that I've got the mortgage covered, maybe she'll come back. With money I give you? Just temporarily. No, Trevor. Jessica left because you can't support your family. If you get her back by using my money, what happens when I stop giving you money? She leaves again? I'll figure something out by then. You've been saying that for 10 years. After Trevor lost the house, he moved into a studio apartment across town. He got a job at a call center, something with regular hours and a steady, if modest, paycheck. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. Jessica and the kids stayed with her parents. The divorce proceedings were messy and expensive, with both sides hiring lawyers they couldn't afford. Through all of this, I maintained my boundaries. No emergency loans, no temporary assistance, no bailouts of any kind. It was hard, especially when I thought about Emma and Jake dealing with their parents' divorce, but I knew that caving now would just restart the cycle. The turning point came in June. I was having dinner at a restaurant downtown when I saw Trevor at a corner table. He was with a woman I didn't recognize, someone pretty and well-dressed who was laughing at something he'd said. For a moment, I was angry. Here he was, taking some woman out for an expensive dinner while claiming he was broke. But then I noticed something. Trevor looked different, healthier. He'd gained back the weight he'd lost. His clothes were clean and pressed, and there was something in his posture that I hadn't seen in years. Confidence. Our eyes met across the restaurant. He said something to the woman, then walked over to my table. Baylor. Trevor. Can I sit down for a minute? I gestured to the empty chair across from me. He sat down and folded his hands on the table. I owe you an apology. I waited. Actually, I owe you a lot of apologies. And probably some money, but we both know I can't pay that back right now. What's changed? Everything. Losing the house, losing Jessica and the kids, having to move into that crappy apartment and work at the call center. It was horrible. But it was also the best thing that ever happened to me. How so? Because for the first time in my adult life, I had to figure things out for myself. No safety net. No big brother to call when things got tough. Just me and my problems. Trevor looked back at the woman at the corner table, who was patiently waiting for him to return. That's Sarah. She's an accountant. We met at work. She doesn't know about all the stuff with you and the money and everything. She thinks I'm just a normal guy who works at a call center and lives in a studio apartment. Isn't that what you are? Trevor smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. Yeah, it is. And you know what? It's not so bad. The work is steady, the pay is decent, and I'm not constantly stressed about money because I'm living within my means. What about Jessica and the kids? The divorce will be final next month. Jessica and I are doing better as co-parents than we ever did as spouses. The kids are adjusting. Emma's in a community center dance program that costs $20 a month instead of $200. Jake's playing in a community soccer league that's free. They're happy. Trevor reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He counted out 4 $20 bills and placed them on the table. This is all I can afford right now, but I want to start paying you back. $80 a month until I've repaid everything I owe you. I looked at the money on the table. At $80 a month, it would take Trevor about 80 years to pay back what he owed me. Keep it, I said, pushing the bills back toward him. Take Sarah out for a nice dinner. Trevor's eyes filled with tears. Baylor, You don't owe me money, Trevor. You owe me an apology and respect. And maybe we could try being actual brothers instead of whatever dysfunctional relationship we had before. I'd like that. We shook hands across the table, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had my brother back. The family slowly began to heal over the following months. Mom and Dad, who had initially blamed me for Trevor's downfall, gradually came to understand that I'd done him a favor by forcing him to stand on his own feet. Trevor's transformation from entitled mooch to responsible adult was impossible to ignore. Christmas that year was different. We had dinner at Mom and Dad's house, all of us together. But this time, Trevor brought a bottle of wine and a homemade dessert. He didn't ask for money. He didn't hint about financial problems. He just enjoyed being with his family. Emma and Jake were there too, shuttling between their parents' houses in the new normal of joint custody. They seemed happier than I'd seen them in years, probably because their parents weren't constantly fighting about money. Uncle Baylor, Emma said as we were opening presents. Thank you for the dance shoes. I'd bought her a pair of ballet slippers for her community center classes. They weren't expensive, but she acted like they were made of gold. You're welcome, sweetheart. Daddy says you helped him become a better person. Is that true? I looked at Trevor, who was helping Jake assemble a new Lego set. Your daddy helped himself become a better person. I just stopped making it so easy for him to avoid growing up. I don't understand. You will when you're older. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the past year. It had been hard, probably the hardest year of my adult life. There had been moments when I'd questioned whether I was doing the right thing, moments when I'd nearly caved and sent money to ease some crisis or another. But seeing Trevor now, genuinely happy and self-sufficient for the first time in his adult life, I knew I'd made the right choice. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their weaknesses. My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. Thanks for dinner tonight, and thanks for everything else. Love you, bro. I smiled and typed back. Love you too. See you next week for Jake's soccer game. It was a small thing, making plans to see each other that didn't involve money or emergencies. But after 10 years of being treated like an ATM, it felt revolutionary. I'd finally gotten my brother back, and more importantly, I'd gotten myself back. The best part about setting boundaries wasn't just that it forced Trevor to grow up. It was that it freed me to start living my own life. With an extra $1,000 a month staying in my account instead of flowing to Trevor's family, I was able to make down payment on a house, start dating seriously for the first time in years, and even begin planning for my own future instead of constantly managing someone else's crisis. Sometimes being a good brother means saying no. It took me 32 years to learn that lesson, but better late than never. Story 3. I came home for the holidays, but Mom opened the door and said, "You weren't invited. This is for family only." I turned around without a word. Minutes later, my sister texted, "Don't take it personally. You know how you are." I smiled, froze the joint account, canceled the utility payments, and cut off every card. By morning, my voicemail was full, and the family group chat was on fire. All right, everyone, strap in because this is going to be a wild ride. Using a throwaway account since this story is about to blow up my family's entire world. I, 31 male, regional sales manager for a major pharmaceutical company in Denver. Make around $185,000 plus bonuses. Worked my way up from entry level through pure determination and long hours building client relationships. My family lives back in small town Kansas where I grew up. Dad Robert, 59, works construction when his back isn't acting up, makes maybe $38,000 on good years. Mom Linda, 57, works part-time at a salon, probably $22,000. Then there's my sister Jessica, 28F, and oh boy, where do I even start with this piece of work? Jessica is what you'd get if you combined a Kardashian with a toddler having a tantrum. Blonde, fake everything. Never worked a real job in her entire life. I'm talking about a girl who once called me crying because she couldn't figure out how to put gas in her car. She's been studying communications at community college for 6 years, switching majors every semester because the professors don't understand her creative vision. Her boyfriend Derek, 29 million, is basically a walking red flag factory. Sells supplements on Instagram, drives a leased BMW he can't afford, calls himself an entrepreneur while living off unemployment and my sister's money. Which, spoiler alert, is actually my money. Growing up, money was always tight. I started working at 14, handed over most of my paychecks to help with bills. While I'm working multiple jobs and studying sales techniques, Jessica gets to be the princess who needs to focus on her studies. When I landed my first real sales job making $45,000, I thought I could finally build my own life. Wrong. Family guilt is powerful. Dad's truck breaks down? I'm buying a new one. Mom needs dental work? I'm covering it. Jessica wants Cancun for spring break? Guess who's funding that vacation? But here's the kicker. To everyone else, I'm still the weird sales guy who got lucky. Jessica tells people I'm just a pharmaceutical representative who hands out free samples. Meanwhile, she's posting on Instagram about her luxury lifestyle, funded entirely by my bank account. Over the past 7 years, I've sent them $142,000. That doesn't include the car I bought dad, $25,000. Mom's dental work, $9,000. Jessica's credit card debts, $18,000 total. Or their house down payment, $40,000. Jessica's got this whole social media persona as a boss babe, lifestyle influencer. Posts daily about workout routines, skincare, and motivational quotes about manifesting abundance. Has maybe 3,200 followers, mostly thirsty dudes and MLM people, but acts like she's the next big thing. Her bio says, Entrepreneur Sparkles. Living my best life, Sparkles DM for collabs. The entrepreneur part kills me because her only income is a Venmo account connected to my bank. She sells maybe $250 worth of detox teas per month that cost her $60 wholesale. But in her mind, she's building an empire. Derek encourages this nonsense, constantly filling her head with YouTube channel ideas and clothing line fantasies. Tells her she's too good for regular jobs and her brand is worth millions. Meanwhile, he's never held a job longer than 3 months. The worst part? They talk down to me like I'm charity they're doing a favor by accepting money from. Jessica actually told me I should be grateful. She lets me help her, because it makes me feel important. Said I probably don't have many friends. True, but still. So being her ATM gives my life meaning. For years, I told myself I was helping family. But deep down, I knew I was funding their delusions, while they chipped away at my self-respect. The breaking point came this past Christmas, and what happened next changed everything. I'd been dreading Christmas for weeks. My last relationship ended in October. Apparently dating someone who travels for work makes me emotionally unavailable. So I was going home alone again. But I figured family time might be good for me. Maybe we could actually connect for once. Drove 7 hours from Denver to our hometown on Christmas Eve, stopped at Target to grab last-minute gifts. Got dad a nice Carhartt jacket, $160. Mom some fancy skincare set, $130. And for Jessica, I don't know why I did this, but I got her the new iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil because she'd been hinting about wanting to start a digital art business. That iPad setup cost me $1,300. For context, that's more than my sister has ever spent on anyone else in her entire life. Her Christmas gifts to family are usually candles from the dollar store or random MLM products she couldn't sell. I pulled into the driveway around 7 p.m. and immediately knew something was up. There were like 6 cars parked outside, music pumping from inside, and I could see people through the windows. Looked like a full party was happening. Walking up to the front door with my arms full of gifts, I could hear Jessica's laugh over everyone else. That fake, loud laugh she does when she's trying to impress people. I knocked and waited. Derek opened the door, took one look at me, and his face just dropped. Oh, hey man. No smile, no Merry Christmas. Just this look like I'd ruined his day by existing. Hey Derek, Merry Christmas. Family party? Yeah, kind of. He's blocking the doorway, not inviting me in. Jessica didn't mention you were coming. That's when I heard my sister's voice from inside. Who is it, babe? It's your brother. I swear the music got turned down and conversations stopped. Like my presence had sucked all the energy out of the room. Jessica appeared next to Derek wearing this tight red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her face went from party happy to annoyed in about 2 seconds. Kevin? What are you doing here? It's Christmas Eve, Jess. I drove down to spend it with family. She exchanged this look with Derek, then stepped outside and partially closed the door behind her. Look, this is kind of awkward timing. We're having a little get-together with Derek's business partners and some influencer friends. It's kind of a networking thing. Networking thing? I'm standing there with gifts in my hands feeling like an idiot. On Christmas Eve? It's not really family time right now, you know? These are important people and... She glanced back at the door. You're still in your work clothes, and you look tired from driving. It's just not the vibe we're going for tonight. I looked down at myself. I was wearing khakis and a polo shirt. Clean clothes, nothing wrong with them, but apparently not up to my sister's standards for her networking event. So I can't come into my parents' house on Christmas Eve because I'm not dressed right for your party? Don't make this weird, Kevin. It's one night. You can come by tomorrow for actual Christmas dinner. This is just business. Business. Right. A business party where I could hear someone inside doing karaoke to All I Want for Christmas Is You. Are mom and dad okay with this? They're at Uncle Mike's house tonight. They'll be back tomorrow morning. And there it was. My parents had been banished from their own home so Jessica could throw a party for Derek's pyramid scheme buddies and her wannabe influencer friends. And now I was getting the same treatment. Jessica, I drove 7 hours to be here. And that's sweet, but you should have called first. I'm building something here, Kevin. These connections could change my life. I can't have... She gestured vaguely at me. I need people to take me seriously as a businesswoman. I couldn't even respond. My own sister was embarrassed by me. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I wasn't part of her fake Instagram lifestyle. There's a Holiday Inn like 10 minutes down the road, she added. I'll Venmo you money for the room with my own money. She was offering to pay for my hotel room with money I'd sent her last month. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds just staring at her, waiting for the punchline or for her to crack a smile and say she was kidding. But she was serious. Dead serious. Merry Christmas, Jessica. I turned around and walked back to my car. As I was pulling out, I could see through the front window. The party had resumed, music back up, everyone laughing and drinking. My sister was already back to being the center of attention, probably telling people about how she'd handled that awkward situation. Driving to the Holiday Inn, I had this moment of clarity. This wasn't family. This was a business transaction where I was the silent investor funding their lifestyle while being kept hidden from public view. I was good enough to pay for their lives, but not good enough to be part of them. That night in the hotel room, I made the first decision that would eventually destroy everything they'd built with my money. Sitting in that Holiday Inn room on Christmas Eve, I did what any analytical person does when they're angry and can't sleep. I started examining data. I opened my laptop and pulled up every financial record from the past 7 years. Bank transfers, credit card statements, Venmo transactions, everything. What I found was even worse than I remembered. $142,000 in direct transfers. But that didn't include car payments for dad, $25,000. House down payment, $40,000. Jessica's credit cards, paid off 4 times, $18,000. Mom's dental and medical, $12,000. Emergency loans never repaid, $9,000. Derek's business investments, $6,000. Total, $252,000. $252,000. That's a house. That's a luxury car and a house down payment. That's my entire savings that I'd been building since I was 22. But wait, it gets better. I decided to do some digital investigation because I was feeling petty and needed to know the truth. I pulled up Jessica's Instagram. Her recent posts were a masterclass in delusional entitlement. Photo of her and Derek at some upscale restaurant. Date night at Morton's. So grateful for this blessed life. Entrepreneur life saturated for manifestation. That dinner was probably $320. I know because I saw the charge on the credit card I pay for. Picture of her new Lululemon haul. Investing in my health is investing in my business. Self-care isn't selfish. Boss babe, worth it. $450 in yoga pants. She doesn't even do yoga. Derek's BMW in the driveway. My man deserves the best. Hard work pays off. Power couple. Success. I'm paying $620 a month for that lease, but the post that really got me was from earlier that day. Christmas Eve vibes with my real family. Sometimes you have to cut out toxic people who bring negative energy to your life. Surrounding myself with winners only. Chosen family. Your boundaries matter. Christmas 2023. Toxic people. I was the toxic person for wanting to spend Christmas with my family after funding their entire lifestyle for 7 years. The comments were even better. Derek. Baby, you're an inspiration. These energy vampires don't deserve you. Some random girl. Yas Queen. Cut off the haters. Derek's mom, who I'd never met. So proud of you both for knowing your worth. I screenshot everything. Every post, every comment, every receipt. Then I started digging deeper. Derek's Instagram was a gold mine of nonsense. Dude had posts about his 6-figure business and passive income streams. Photos of him with stacks of cash, probably the $2,500 I'd sent Jessica the week before. Videos of him talking about financial freedom and escaping the matrix. My favorite was a post from last month. Just closed another $12,000 month. While most people are stuck in the rat race, I'm building generational wealth. DM me if you're ready to change your life. Entrepreneur mindset. Financial freedom are self-made. Self-made. With my money. I found Derek's YouTube channel too. 15 subscribers, Mostly videos of him in the BMW talking about success and motivation. One video was literally titled, How I Went From Broke to Boss in 6 Months, posted right after I'd sent them $9,000 for Derek's business emergency. But here's where it got really interesting. I found Jessica's Venmo transactions. She kept her account public because she's not very smart. She'd been sending Derek $1,800 every month labeled as business investment and supporting my CEO. Derek was taking money I sent Jessica and using it to fund his fake lifestyle, then posting about it online like he'd earned it himself. And Jessica was so desperate to play Instagram girlfriend that she was giving him money to take her to dinner with. That's when I realized this wasn't just about being excluded from Christmas. This was about two parasites who'd built their entire identities around money they'd stolen from me, then had the audacity to call me toxic for expecting basic family respect. I spent the rest of Christmas Eve building a plan, not just to cut them off, but to systematically dismantle everything they'd built with my money. I wanted them to feel exactly as helpless and humiliated as they'd made me feel. See, here's the thing about being in sales. You learn to think strategically. You identify dependencies, trace relationship flows, and find single points of failure. Jessica and Derek's entire life was built on one massive dependency, me. Remove that dependency correctly, and everything collapses. I made a list of every account, every payment, every way I was connected to their finances. Then, I prioritized them based on maximum impact. Car payments, credit cards, phone bills, insurance, everything they'd grown dependent on without even realizing it. But I didn't want to just cut them off. I wanted them to understand exactly what they'd lost and why. I wanted them to realize that the toxic loser they'd kicked out of Christmas was the only reason their fake empire existed. By sunrise on Christmas morning, I had a complete plan. It was going to take 3 months to execute properly, but when I was done, their entire world would collapse. And the beautiful part? They'd do most of the work themselves. Christmas morning, I checked out of the hotel and drove straight back to Denver. Didn't even try to see my parents. I was done pretending this was a normal family situation. Jessica texted me around noon. Hope you're not being dramatic about last night. Family dinner is at 2 if you want to come by. I didn't respond. She texted again at 3. Mom is asking where you are. Don't make this a big thing. Then at 5, fine, be childish. But you're ruining Christmas for everyone. Still didn't respond. But I screenshot everything. Monday morning, I started phase 1, information gathering. I called my parents separately and had the most enlightening conversations of my life. Dad answered on the second ring. Kevin, we missed you at dinner yesterday. Jessica said you had to work. I had to work? Dad, I drove 7 hours to see you guys, and Jessica told me I couldn't come to the house because I wasn't dressed right for her party. Long pause. What party? The networking event she threw at your house Christmas Eve. You and Mom weren't even there. Another pause. Son, we were at my brother's place because Jessica said you wanted to host a small family gathering and needed the house. She said it was a surprise for us. My blood pressure spiked. She told me you guys chose to go to Uncle Mike's. She kicked me out of your house and lied to both of us about it. That doesn't sound right. Let me call your mother. I hung up and immediately called Mom. Same story. Jessica had told them I wanted to throw a family Christmas and needed them out of the house for the surprise. They'd gone to Uncle Mike's thinking they were helping me plan something special. So not only had Jessica excluded me from Christmas, she'd manipulated our parents into leaving their own home by using my name. Then she'd thrown a party for Derek's scammer friends and kicked me out when I showed up. That's when I knew this wasn't just entitlement. This was calculated manipulation. I started monitoring their social media more carefully. Derek was posting daily about his business success, and Jessica was posting about her entrepreneur journey. Every expensive dinner, every shopping trip, every investment in their future was documented online. What they didn't realize is that I could track every dollar. When Jessica posted about her $220 skincare routine, I could see the charge on the credit card I paid for. When Derek bragged about his $12K month, I could see it was actually just the money I'd transferred for Dad's medical bills. But I wasn't ready to cut them off yet. I wanted them to get comfortable, maybe even more dependent. So I kept paying everything while documenting their lies. In January, Jessica called asking for money for emergency car repairs. I sent $1,400. 2 days later, she posted Instagram stories of her and Derek at some spa resort. Self-care Sunday. On treat yourself, on blessed. In February, she needed $900 for school expenses. The next week, Derek posted a video titled, How I Afford My Lifestyle at 29, featuring the new gaming setup he'd bought with that money. March was the best one. Jessica called crying about how stressed she was with school and work. She wasn't working. She needed $2,200 for mental health support and therapy. I sent it immediately because mental health is important. 3 days later, they posted about their weekend trip to Vegas. Derek's Instagram story showed him throwing money around while Jessica filmed and laughed. The caption was, "Living our best life. Money flows to us because we have the right mindset. My money." Literally throwing my money around while posting about their superior mindset. But this gave me an idea for phase 2. I started engaging more with their social media, liking their posts, commenting supportive things, even sharing Derek's business advice videos. I wanted them to think I was following their success and maybe feeling bad about Christmas. I also started asking Jessica about her business in our phone calls. "How's the entrepreneur life going? You guys seem to be doing amazing." "Oh my gosh, Kevin, it's been incredible. Derek's business is exploding and my brand is really taking off. We're thinking about getting a bigger apartment soon." "That's awesome, Jess. You guys are killing it." I could hear the smugness in her voice. She thought she'd proved something by excluding me from Christmas. In her mind, cutting out the toxic family member had unlocked their success. If only she knew that every dollar of that success came from the toxic family member's bank account. By the end of March, I had everything I needed. Screenshots of every hypocritical post, recordings of every lie they'd told me and our parents, financial records of every dollar they'd spent of my money while calling me toxic. But more importantly, they'd gotten comfortable. Their lifestyle had inflated even more. Derek had started talking about buying a house. Jessica was planning a trip to Europe. They were making financial commitments based on money that was about to disappear. It was time for phase 2, the bait. April 1st seemed like the perfect day to start phase 2, though the irony wasn't intentional. I called Jessica with an idea that would make everything that followed so much sweeter. "Hey Jess, I've been thinking. You and Derek are doing so well with your businesses, and I feel bad about how things went at Christmas. I want to make it up to you by investing in Derek's business. Like, seriously investing. Maybe $60,000 to start." The line went quiet. Then, "Kevin, wow. That's actually amazing. How much are we talking about?" "60,000, but I'd want to be a real partner. See the business plan, understand the financials, maybe meet with Derek's team." "60,000? Her voice went up 3 octaves. "Holy crap, Kevin. Derek is going to flip. There's just one thing. I'd need proof the business is as successful as you say. Tax returns, bank statements, that kind of thing." "Of course. Derek keeps track of everything. We're totally legit." "Perfect. Maybe Derek could put together a presentation. I could drive down for a weekend, meet his team, see the operation in person." "Yes!" "Kevin, this is going to be incredible. Derek's always said that smart money recognizes smart money." Smart money. Right. After we hung up, I actually laughed out loud. They thought they were about to scam me out of $60,000. What they didn't realize is that they were about to prove they'd been scamming me all along. Over the next few weeks, Jessica kept me updated on their preparation. Derek was apparently working 18-hour days on his business presentation. They'd rented office space for the meeting. Jessica bought a new professional wardrobe. All with my money, of course. Meanwhile, I hired my company's forensic accountant to analyze the financial data I'd gathered. The 52-page report was devastating. They weren't just spoiled family members. They were straight-up thieves with clear intent to defraud. By late April, Jessica was texting daily updates. Derek had created a 45-slide PowerPoint about his supplement business with projected 5-year revenue growth. They'd printed business cards and set up professional email addresses. The effort they put into legitimizing their scam was almost impressive. May 3rd, I drove to Kansas. This time, I was invited to their apartment. A 2-bedroom place way too expensive for their actual income. Decorated like an Instagram influencer's wet dream with all-white furniture and a ring light setup. Derek answered wearing a suit that probably cost more than he'd ever earned legitimately. "Kevin, brother, so good to see you, man. Are you ready to join our team?" Our team. Like I was applying to work for them. Jessica was dressed for a Fortune 500 board meeting. Are you ready to see what real entrepreneurship looks like? The presentation was something else. Derek had clearly binged Gary Vaynerchuk videos and was doing his best motivational speaker impression, talking about disrupting the wellness industry and building a lifestyle business. His slides showed projected revenues that would make him a millionaire within 2 years. The best part was the financials. According to Derek, his business generated $9,500 monthly revenue with 72% profit margins. $9,500 per month. I'd sent Jessica $9,000 just last month for emergencies. "This is impressive, Derek," I said. "I do have questions, though. If you're clearing $6,800 monthly profit, why does Jessica still need emergency money? Derek's smile faltered before snapping back. Well, we're in a growth phase. Most profit goes back into inventory and marketing. Makes sense. Do you have bank statements showing the business revenue? Well, a lot of our revenue comes through cash and PayPal, so it doesn't all show up in traditional banking. PayPal statements work too, or tax returns. Another glance at Jessica. We're working with a new accountant to get all that organized. I spent another hour asking detailed questions about supply chain, customer acquisition, competitive analysis. Every question revealed another hole. Derek was sweating through his expensive suit, and Jessica looked ready to cry. This sounds great, I finally said. I'm definitely interested, but I'll need to review all the financial documentation first. Why don't you send me everything, and I'll have my accountant analyze it? Your accountant? Jessica asked weakly. Oh yeah, I don't make any investments without professional analysis. This is $60,000 we're talking about. They nodded enthusiastically, but I could see the panic. They'd just promised financial documents for a business that didn't exist. I'll give you 2 weeks to get everything together. As I walked to my car, I could hear them arguing through the thin walls about needing to figure this out and make the numbers work. Too late for that, guys. I already knew exactly what their numbers looked like. 2 weeks came and went with no financial documents from Derek and Jessica. I got a series of increasingly desperate phone calls with increasingly ridiculous excuses. Week 1. The accountant had a family emergency and won't be back until next week. Week 2. There was a computer crash and we lost some files, but we're reconstructing everything. Week 3. Derek's business partner took some of the documents when he went out of town. Finally, Jessica called crying. Kevin, I need to be honest with you. Derek's business isn't doing as well as he said. He was trying to impress you, but the numbers he showed were projected for next year. So he lied to me about his current revenue? Not lied, just was optimistic about where things are heading. But Kevin, that's why your investment would be so important. We could actually reach those numbers with the right capital. Classic con artist move. When the original lie falls apart, pitch it as an opportunity. Jessica, I asked for current financial statements. If Derek doesn't have $9,500 a month in revenue, what is he actually making? Long pause. It varies month to month. Some months are better than others. What was last month? I don't know the exact number. Ballpark. Maybe $450? $450. Not $9,500. His business was making less per month than I spend on groceries. Jessica, you realize Derek lied to me about generating 21 times more revenue than he actually makes. It's not lying, it's manifestation. He's visualizing success and working toward it. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Okay, forget Derek's business for now. How about your influencer brand? You're always posting about your success. What kind of income are you generating? Another long pause. Kevin, why are you asking all these questions? I feel like you're trying to make us feel bad about not being as successful as we want to be. I'm asking because I was about to invest $60,000 based on information that turned out to be completely false. I think I have a right to understand what's really going on. Fine. You want the truth? Derek makes maybe $550 a month when he has good sales. I make about $280 from my social media stuff. We're not millionaires, okay? We're trying to build something, but it takes time. $830 combined. They were making $830 a month total, while posting about their entrepreneur lifestyle and calling me toxic for wanting basic respect. So how are you affording the apartment, the car payments, the dinners, all the stuff you post about? Silence. Jessica, we're really good at budgeting. Your rent alone is $1,950 a month. Derek's car payment is $620. That's $2,570 before food, insurance, or anything else. How do you budget $830 to cover $2,570 in basic expenses? More silence. Jessica, I know how you're affording it. The question is whether you're going to be honest with me. She started crying. Kevin, we never meant for it to get this complicated. When you started helping us, it was just temporary until we got on our feet. But then things got more expensive, and Derek's business was growing slower than expected, and we didn't know how to tell you. So you just kept taking money while posting about how successful you were? We were trying to fake it till we make it. That's what all the business coaches say. Project success and success will come. And what about Christmas? Was excluding me from family dinner part of faking it till you make it? That wasn't about money. That was about, we had important people there. Derek's mentor and some potential business partners. We needed to look professional. So I'm not professional enough to be around your fake business partners. It's not that you're not professional, it's just you're a sales guy. You don't understand the entrepreneurship mindset. Those people needed to see us as equals, not as someone's charity case. Someone's charity case. That's what I was to them. The charity case who paid for their entire lifestyle. Jessica, I've been sending you and the family over $250,000 in the last 7 years. It hasn't been that much. I have records of every transaction. $252,000 total. And you just called me a charity case. The crying got harder. I didn't mean it like that. Kevin, you're my brother. We love you. The money stuff is it's complicated. It's not complicated. I've been funding your fake lifestyle while you lie about me to other people and exclude me from family events. That's not complicated. That's theft and abuse. Don't say that. We're family. Family doesn't treat each other like this, Jessica. Kevin, please, can we just start over? Forget about the investment thing. Things can go back to normal. Normal. Where I send money and get treated like garbage in return. I need some time to think about all this, Jess. What does that mean? It means I need to figure out what kind of relationship I want with family members who've been lying to me for years. Kevin, don't do anything crazy. We can fix this. I hung up without answering. Monday morning, I started making phone calls. First call, my bank, to report unauthorized use of accounts where I'd added Jessica and Derek as authorized users. Second call, the car dealership, to inform them I'd no longer be making payments on Derek's BMW lease. Third call, their apartment complex, to inform them I'd been guaranteeing their lease and needed to remove myself immediately. Fourth call, Jessica. Kevin, thank goodness you called. I've been worried sick since yesterday. Derek and I talked all night and we want to make this right. That's great to hear, Jess. I've been doing some thinking too. Good. So can we move past all this weirdness and get back to normal? Well, that depends on what you mean by normal. If you mean me sending money while you lie about your income and exclude me from family events, then no. Kevin, come on. The business thing was just Derek being overly optimistic. Overly optimistic? Jessica, he claimed to make $9,500 a month when he actually makes $550. That's not optimism. That's fraud. Don't use that word. He was just trying to impress you. By lying to me to get $60,000? Do you understand that if I'd given him that money based on false information, you guys could go to prison? Prison? Kevin, you're being dramatic. Actually, I'm being generous. Because instead of calling the police about the fraud, I'm just cutting you off. Cutting us off? I've canceled all the credit cards. The car payment stops next week. I'm not sending any more money for any reason. The line went quiet for 10 seconds. Kevin, you can't do that. We have commitments. Derek's car payment is due Thursday. Then Derek better figure out how to make a car payment with his $550 a month business income. We'll lose the car. Yes, you will. And the apartment. Probably that too. She started crying, but this time it sounded different. Less manipulative, more panicked. Reality was setting in. Kevin, please. We made mistakes, but we can fix this. Don't destroy our lives over some stupid arguments. I'm not destroying your lives, Jessica. I'm just not funding them anymore. There's a difference. Where are we supposed to live? What are we supposed to do? Get jobs. Like normal people. Derek grabbed the phone. Kevin, bro, let's be reasonable here. Family helps family. Family also doesn't lie to family, Derek. Or steal from them. Or exclude them from Christmas dinner. Look, Christmas was Jessica's call, not mine. And the business thing? Okay, I exaggerated the numbers. But that's just good salesmanship. No, Derek, you were trying to scam me out of $60,000 using fake financial information. That's called fraud. Fraud? Dude, you're my brother-in-law. No, I'm the guy who's been paying for your fake lifestyle while you call yourself an entrepreneur on Instagram. Those posts are about motivation, man. Fake it till you make it. You've been faking it with my money for 2 years. When exactly were you planning to make it? He didn't have an answer. Jessica took the phone back. Kevin, what if we pay you back? We can set up a payment plan. With what money? You make $830 a month combined, and your expenses are over $3,200. We'll get better jobs, real jobs. Great. When you do that and pay me back the $252,000 you've taken, we can talk about having a relationship again. $252,000? That's not... You're counting things that weren't loans. Emergency money for Dad's truck that went to Derek's business. Mom's dental work that paid for your Vegas trip. School expenses that funded your lifestyle. All of it was based on lies. We can't pay back $252,000. That's impossible. Then I guess you should have thought about that before you spent it. Kevin, please, you're being cruel. I'm being honest. For the first time in years, I'm being completely honest about what this relationship really is. What do you mean? You don't love me, Jessica. You love my money. You don't see me as your brother? You see me as your ATM. And when I wanted to be treated like family, you told me I wasn't good enough to be around your friends. That's not true. Then prove it. Move back in with mom and dad. Get real jobs. Build actual lives without my money. If you can do that for a full year without asking me for a single dollar, then we can talk about rebuilding our relationship. I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers. Within an hour, my parents were calling. I spent 2 hours explaining everything: the lies about Christmas, Derek's fake business presentation, the $252,000 I'd sent over 7 years. I sent them screenshots of Jessica and Derek's social media posts, bragging about their lifestyle while calling me toxic. Mom was quiet for a long time. Honey, we had no idea it was that much money, or that they were treating you so badly. I know, Mom. That's why I'm not cutting you and Dad off. This is about Jessica and Derek specifically. 3 days later, Jessica and Derek had to give up the BMW. The repo man came while they were at Target, and Derek posted about it on Instagram before thinking better of it and deleting it. A week later, they couldn't make rent and got an eviction notice. 2 weeks later, Jessica's Instagram went quiet. No more hashtag entrepreneur life posts, no more pictures of expensive dinners, no more motivational quotes about manifestation. Derek's YouTube channel posted one final video: why I'm taking a break from content creation. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. They moved back in with my parents, both having to get actual jobs for the first time in years. Jessica started working at the salon with Mom. Derek got hired at a warehouse. A month later, Jessica sent me a long email, not asking for money, but apologizing for real this time, admitting they'd taken advantage of me, that they'd been living in a fantasy funded by my hard work, that Christmas was unforgivable. She said Derek had broken up with her when he realized there was no more money coming. Apparently, his love was as fake as his business. She said she was going to therapy and trying to understand why she'd treated me so badly. The email felt different from her usual manipulation. Painful, but honest. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to process whether this was real change or just another attempt to get back in my good graces. 8 months later, Jessica has kept her job and hasn't asked me for money once. She's posting about normal life instead of fake entrepreneur nonsense. She wished me happy birthday last month without mentioning money at all. Derek moved to another state and blocked me on social media. Good riddance. My parents and I have a better relationship now, too. Without Jessica constantly creating drama, we actually talk about real things instead of financial emergencies. I'm not ready to forgive Jessica completely. Trust takes time to rebuild, and 7 years of lies doesn't get erased by 8 months of good behavior. But I'm not closed to the possibility that someday we might actually be family instead of just relatives. The best part? I've saved $22,000 in the 8 months since I cut them off. Money that would have funded their fake lifestyle is now going into my retirement account where it belongs. Sometimes the best way to help people is to stop helping them. Took me 7 years and $252,000 to learn that lesson, but it was worth every penny to finally get my life back. Story 4. My golden brother demanded half my business after years of no contact, and my mom backed him up, saying he's 10 times better than me. So I taught them a lesson they'll never forget for the rest of their lives. I never thought I'd be writing this story, but after everything that's happened in the past few months, I need to get this off my chest. I 35 male a software engineer who built a successful cybersecurity consulting firm from the ground up. My company now employs 47 people and generates about $12 million annually. Not bad for someone who started coding in his parents' basement 15 years ago. But this story isn't really about my success. It's about my toxic family and how they tried to destroy everything I'd worked for when they realized I'd actually made something of myself. Let me start with some background. I have a younger brother, Jake, who's 32. Growing up, Jake was the golden child who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, especially our mothers. While I was the quiet, studious kid who spent his time learning programming languages and building computers, Jake was the charming, athletic one who played varsity football and had girls constantly calling the house. Our parents, particularly Mom, made it crystal clear who their favorite was. When Jake needed a car for his 16th birthday, they bought him a brand new Mustang. When I turned 16 6 months later, they handed me the keys to our old Honda Civic that was already 8 years old and had 150,000 miles on it. When Jake wanted to go to parties, They'd give him money for gas and tell him to have fun. When I wanted to attend programming camps or buy computer equipment, I had to use money from my part-time job at the local computer repair shop. The favoritism was so blatant that even extended family members commented on it, but Mom would just smile and say that Jake needs more support because he's more social. Dad usually stayed quiet during these conversations, though I could sometimes catch him looking uncomfortable when Mom's bias was particularly obvious. Jake coasted through high school on his charm and athletic ability, getting into a decent state university on a partial football scholarship. I, meanwhile, earned a full academic scholarship to MIT. You'd think that would have impressed our parents, but Mom's reaction was to worry about how Jake would feel about his brother going to a better school. She actually suggested I should consider staying closer to home, so Jake wouldn't feel overshadowed. That conversation was probably the moment I realized I'd never be the favored son, no matter what I accomplished. College was liberating. For the first time in my life, I was valued for my intelligence and technical skills, rather than compared unfavorably to my brother. I thrived at MIT, graduating summa cum laude with a computer science degree, and immediately landing a job at a top tech company in Boston. Jake, meanwhile, blew out his knee junior year, lost his scholarship, and barely managed to graduate with a business degree that he never really used. But whenever I came home for holidays, Mom would spend hours talking about Jake's potential and how he was figuring things out, while barely asking about my career. The final straw came when I was 28. I'd just gotten engaged to Sarah, a brilliant data scientist I'd met at work, and I was planning to start my own company. When I shared this news with the family, Mom's first question wasn't congratulations or asking about my plans. It was whether I'd considered hiring Jake as a partner since he had a business degree. I politely declined, explaining that I needed someone with technical expertise, not general business knowledge, especially in the critical early stages. Jake laughed it off at the time, saying he wasn't interested in nerd stuff anyway, but I could see the disappointment in Mom's eyes. That Christmas dinner turned into a disaster when Mom kept pushing the issue, suggesting that as brothers, we should support each other's success. When I finally lost my patience and pointed out that Jake had never once supported my achievements or even shown interest in what I did for work, she accused me of being jealous of Jake's social skills and said I was being selfish. Jake sat there smirking through the whole argument, occasionally adding fuel to the fire with comments like, "Mom, you know how he's always been with money," or "Some people just aren't family-oriented." That was the last family gathering I attended. I went low contact after that, only responding to direct questions in family group chats and skipping holidays. Dad would occasionally call to check in, and I could tell he wanted to bridge the gap, but he'd never stand up to Mom's favoritism. Sarah and I moved to Austin 2 years later when I launched Secure Flow Solutions. The business grew rapidly. Turns out there's huge demand for cybersecurity consulting, especially from companies that have been hacked and need someone to fix their systems and prevent future breaches. Within 3 years, I had 15 employees. Within 5 years, I was pulling in 8 figures annually. I was careful to keep my success off social media and never discussed money with family during our rare conversations. Dad passed away from a heart attack 3 years ago, and while that was devastating, it also meant even less reason to maintain contact with Mom and Jake. The funeral was awkward. I hadn't seen Jake in person for almost 4 years, and he'd changed. Gone was the cocky athlete I remembered. He looked soft around the middle, had a patchy beard, and kept making comments about how lucky I was to have such a successful business. Mom spent the entire reception telling people how proud she was of both her sons, conveniently omitting the fact that she'd barely spoken to me in years. After the funeral, I expected we'd go back to our minimal contact routine. I was wrong. About 6 months later, my mom called me out of the blue. This was unusual. She typically only called on my birthday or major holidays, and even then, the conversations were stilted and brief. "Honey, I've been going through your father's papers," she began, "and I found something that I think you need to know about." She claimed that Dad had kept a journal where he'd written about his hopes for his son's futures. According to her, he'd specifically written that he hoped Jake and I would eventually work together, combining my technical skills with Jake's business acumen. She said Dad had always dreamed of his boys building something together. I was skeptical, but I also felt guilty about our strained relationship and wondered if maybe Dad really had hoped we'd reconcile through business. I told Mom I'd think about it, but I wasn't making any promises. 2 weeks later, Jake called me directly for the first time in years. "Hey, brother," he said, using a term of endearment he'd never used when we were kids. Mom told me about Dad's journal. I've been thinking a lot about what he wanted for us. Jake explained that he'd been working various sales jobs since college, but had never found his calling. He said learning about Dad's wishes had made him realize that maybe we were meant to work together, that maybe he could help take my business to the next level. Despite my instincts screaming that this was a bad idea, I felt obligated to at least hear him out. We arranged to meet for lunch the following week when he'd be in Austin visiting friends. The lunch meeting should have been my first red flag. Jake didn't come alone. He brought his girlfriend, a woman named Melissa, who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. She was probably mid-20s, with long blonde hair, perfect makeup, and the kind of curves that made every man in the restaurant take a second look. "This is Melissa," Jake said proudly. "She's been helping me research your company and develop some ideas for how we could work together." Melissa smiled at me with perfectly white teeth and extended a manicured hand. "Jake's told me so much about you, David. I'm so impressed by what you've built. I have a background in marketing and business development, so I understand how challenging it must have been to grow a technical services company." I was immediately suspicious. Since when did Jake date women with business backgrounds? In high school and college, his girlfriends had typically been cheerleaders and party girls, not exactly the type to research cybersecurity companies. During lunch, Jake pitched his vision for our partnership. He wanted to come on as COO, handling all business development, client relationships, and company expansion. He claimed that with his people skills and business degree, he could help me scale the company nationally, maybe even internationally. "Think about it, David," he said, leaning forward earnestly. "You're brilliant at the technical stuff, but you've always been more comfortable behind a computer than in a boardroom. I could handle all the client-facing work, the networking, the big picture strategy. We'd be unstoppable together." Melissa nodded enthusiastically. "Jake has such natural charisma. I bet your clients would love working with him. And imagine how much more you could focus on innovation if you didn't have to worry about all the business side of things." I listened politely, but kept my responses non-committal. Jake seemed to interpret my silence as interest, because by the end of lunch, he was talking about specific percentages. "I was thinking a 50-50 partnership would be fair," he said casually, as if he were discussing the weather. "After all, Dad always said we were equals. And you'll need someone with real business experience if you want to compete with the big consulting firms." I nearly choked on my coffee. A 50-50 split? For someone who'd never worked a day in cybersecurity and hadn't been part of building the company from nothing. "Jake," I said carefully, "I think you're getting a little ahead of yourself. This is just an exploratory conversation." His face darkened slightly, but Melissa quickly jumped in with a dazzling smile. "Of course. We're just excited about the possibilities. Why don't we all get together again soon? Maybe I could see your office? I'd love to understand more about what you do." Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. There was an undertone to her voice, a suggestion that she wanted to understand more than just my business. After they left, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Jake had gone from barely speaking to me for years to demanding half my company based on some supposed journal entry from Dad that I'd never seen. And this Melissa woman, there was something off about her. I decided to do what I do best: research. That evening, I started digging into Jake's recent history. Social media stalking revealed that he'd been unemployed for the past 8 months, after being fired from a car dealership for performance issues. His LinkedIn showed a pattern of short-term jobs, mostly in sales, with gaps between positions growing longer over time. Melissa was more interesting. Her Instagram showed the lifestyle of someone with money: expensive clothes, fancy restaurants, exotic vacations. But when I did a deeper dive, I found that her marketing and business development background was mostly working for multi-level marketing schemes and consulting for small businesses that had all failed within a year of hiring her. Most telling, though, was that Jake and Melissa had only been dating for 4 months, but every single one of her recent posts was designed to look like they'd been together much longer. She'd even posted old photos with other men, but cropped them out and added captions about my love that made it seem like she and Jake had a long history. This was starting to smell like a con. I called my lawyer, Mike Chen, who'd helped me set up the company initially. I explained the situation and asked him to review my corporate documents to make sure there was no way Jake could have any legitimate claim to ownership. "David, unless you signed something or your father had some kind of ownership stake that I'm not aware of, there's no way Jake has any legal claim to your company," Mike assured me. "But I'd be careful about any new contracts or agreements, and maybe we should think about tightening up your corporate structure." Meanwhile, Jake started calling me every few days, each time more pushy about moving forward with our partnership. He'd send me articles about successful brother business teams and kept mentioning Dad's supposed wishes. The breakthrough came 2 weeks later when Melissa texted me directly. "Hey David, I was wondering if you wanted to get coffee sometime? Just the two of us." I feel like we didn't really get to connect during lunch, and I have some ideas that might interest you. The winky emoji made her intentions pretty clear. I decided to play along and see what she was really after. We met at a trendy coffee shop in downtown Austin. Melissa had clearly dressed to impress, a low-cut blouse, short skirt, and heels that made her legs look like they went on forever. She spent the first 20 minutes asking detailed questions about my business, my clients, my revenue, my expansion plans. Then she started getting personal. Jake's told me so much about your relationship growing up, she said, leaning closer. He feels terrible that you two grew apart. He really looks up to you, you know? This was news to me, considering Jake had spent our entire childhood treating me like an annoying afterthought. He's been researching cybersecurity nonstop since you two had lunch, she continued. He's so excited about the possibility of working together. I think he sees it as a chance to finally have the kind of relationship with you that he's always wanted. I made non-committal responses while she kept probing for more information about my business operations, my biggest clients, my profit margins. It was clear she was fishing for intelligence, not trying to build a relationship. Then she made her move. David, can I be honest with you? She said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I think Jake might be selling himself short. From what I can see, you've built something amazing, but there's so much untapped potential. Someone with the right connections could help you expand in ways you've never imagined. Her hand lingered on mine, and she gave me a look that was definitely not about business development. Maybe we should get together sometime when we can really talk, she purred. Without Jake around, I think you and I could accomplish great things together. Bingo. She was trying to seduce me, probably hoping to get insider information she could use to help Jake in whatever scam they were running. I smiled and played dumb. That's interesting, Melissa. What kind of connections are you thinking about? For the next hour, she fed me a line of bullshit about investors she supposedly knew, government contracts she could help me land, international expansion opportunities. None of it was specific enough to be real, but all of it was designed to make me think she was the key to taking my business to the next level. As she talked, she kept finding excuses to touch my arm, lean in close, or make suggestive comments about how we could explore possibilities together. It was both pathetic and infuriating. When we parted ways, she hugged me just a little too long and whispered, I hope we can do this again soon. I think we have a lot to offer each other. That night, I set up a hidden camera system in my home office and started recording every conversation I had with Jake or Melissa. I had a feeling I was going to need evidence of whatever they were planning. Sure enough, Jake called the next day, more aggressive than ever. Dave, I've been patient, but I need to know where we stand, he said. Melissa thinks you're interested in moving forward, and I don't want to waste any more time. I need to know if you're serious about honoring Dad's wishes. What exactly did Dad write in this journal? I asked. I'd like to see it before making any major decisions. There was a pause. Well, Mom has it, and she's not comfortable sharing it right now. It's too emotional for her, but she told you what it said. Jake, I can't make a business decision based on secondhand information about a document I've never seen. His tone shifted to barely controlled anger. Are you calling Mom a liar? Are you saying she's making this up? I'm saying I'd like to see evidence before giving away half of the company I built from scratch. Giving away? He exploded. This isn't giving anything away. This is honoring our father's memory and finally working together like a real family. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. You've always been selfish when it comes to family. I hung up on him. 2 days later, Mom called, crying. David, honey, Jake is so hurt, she sobbed. He just wants to be close to his brother. Why are you being so stubborn about this? Your father would be heartbroken to see you two fighting. Mom, I'm not fighting with anyone. I just want to see this journal entry before making any business decisions. I can't show it to you right now. It's too painful. But I promise you, David, your father wanted his boys to work together. He was so proud of both of you. This was rich, considering Dad had barely known what I did for work and had never once visited my office or asked about my business. If Dad really wanted us to work together, why didn't he ever mention it to me when he was alive? I asked. Mom's crying intensified. Because he didn't want to pressure you. He knew you needed to find your own way first. But now that you're successful, it's time to help your brother. There it was. The real truth. This wasn't about Dad's wishes or bringing the family together. This was about Mom wanting me to take care of her golden child now that Jake had proven incapable of supporting himself. I told Mom I needed time to think about it, and hung up. That weekend, Melissa texted me again, suggesting we meet for drinks. I agreed, curious to see how far she'd push things. She showed up at the upscale bar wearing a dress that was barely legal, and made sure to sit close enough that her leg pressed against mine. After 2 drinks, she was practically in my lap. David, I'm going to be direct with you, she said, her hand on my thigh. I think you and I have chemistry, real chemistry, and I think we could help each other in ways that go beyond business. She leaned in close, her lips nearly touching my ear. Jake doesn't have to know about our private consultations. I could give you information that would help you make the right decisions about the partnership, and you could help me understand how a really successful man operates. I almost laughed at how obvious she was being. Instead, I decided to test something. That's interesting, Melissa. What kind of information are you thinking about? She smiled seductively. Well, I know Jake's been talking to some lawyers about his rights to the company. He seems to think he might have stronger legal grounds than you realize. But if we had our own arrangement, I could make sure you stay ahead of whatever he's planning. Now we were getting somewhere. What lawyers? I probably shouldn't say, she said coyly, trailing her finger along my arm. But maybe if we went somewhere more private, I could tell you more. I made an excuse about having an early morning meeting and left her at the bar looking frustrated. The next morning, I hired a private investigator named Tom Rodriguez, who specialized in financial fraud cases. I gave him everything I had on Jake and Melissa and asked him to dig deeper. What he found was even worse than I'd suspected. Tom discovered that Melissa's real name was actually Miranda Walsh, and she had a history of targeting successful men in various scams. Her MO was to identify wealthy targets, research their family dynamics, then position herself as someone who could help manipulate family relationships for financial gain. Jake, meanwhile, had been contacting lawyers, but not about legitimate ownership claims. He'd been shopping around for attorneys who would help him file nuisance lawsuits against my company, hoping to force me into a settlement rather than deal with prolonged legal battles. Most damning of all, Tom found text messages between Jake and Melissa. He had contacts in the cell phone industry who could access deleted messages for legal investigations. The messages revealed their entire plan. They'd been planning this scam for months, ever since Jake had discovered through mutual acquaintances how successful my company had become. Melissa had researched my business, my personal life, and my family dynamics. They'd coached each other on how to approach me, with Melissa playing the role of the supportive girlfriend while also being available as a backup plan if seduction worked better than family pressure. The journal story was completely fabricated. In fact, the text messages showed them laughing about how gullible I was and how easy it would be to manipulate me using Dad's memory. Their plan was multi-pronged. Jake would pressure me using family guilt while Melissa gathered intelligence through seduction. If I agreed to any kind of partnership, they'd use that foothold to gradually take over more of the company. If I refused, Jake would file harassment and discrimination lawsuits claiming I was denying him opportunities based on family bias, hoping to force a settlement that would give him money even without ownership. But the most enraging part was a message from Jake to Melissa that said, "David's always been a pushover when it comes to family. Mom's got him trained to feel guilty about everything. This is going to be easier than we thought." Reading those messages made my blood boil. They thought I was some kind of weak, guilty pushover they could manipulate with fake tears and family pressure. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I spent the next 2 weeks carefully planning my response. First, I had Mike Chen draft airtight cease and desist letters to both Jake and Melissa, explicitly forbidding them from making any claims about ownership in my company and warning them that any attempts to interfere with my business relationships would result in legal action. Then I did something that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. I decided to go nuclear on my own family. I gathered all the evidence Tom had collected, the text messages, the background checks, the financial records showing Jake's unemployment and Melissa's scam history, and compiled it into a comprehensive dossier. On a Thursday evening, I called Jake and told him I'd made my decision about the partnership. "I've thought about Dad's wishes," I said, "and I think you're right. We should be working together. Why don't you and Melissa come to my office tomorrow afternoon? I'll show you around, we can discuss terms, and maybe we can make this partnership official." Jake was ecstatic. "David, you won't regret this. We're going to build something incredible together. This is what Dad would have wanted." I scheduled the meeting for 3 p.m. on Friday, knowing that most of my employees would still be in the office to witness whatever happened. Friday afternoon, Jake and Melissa arrived dressed like they were already executives of my company. Jake wore an expensive suit that he probably couldn't afford, and Melissa was in a power dress that somehow still managed to show enough cleavage to be inappropriate for a business meeting. I welcomed them into my office, where I'd set up a conference table with folders, legal pads, and water bottles, all the props of a serious business meeting. "Before we get started," I said, "I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what we're discussing here." Jake nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. I'm thinking we start with a 50-50 partnership, like we discussed, and then we can talk about expansion plans, new markets, maybe bringing Melissa on as our marketing director. Melissa smiled and nodded. I have so many ideas for growing the business. I think we could double your revenue within the first year. That sounds ambitious, I said, opening one of the folders on the table. Before we move forward, though, I need to address a few concerns. I slid a copy of the private investigator's report across the table to Jake. This is a background check I had done as part of my due diligence. Jake's face went pale as he saw the first page, which included Melissa's real name and a summary of her scam history. What the hell is this? He demanded. It's the truth about your girlfriend and your little plan to defraud me, I said calmly. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate before giving away half my company? Melissa tried to maintain her composure. David, I don't know what you think you found, but I know your real name is Miranda Walsh, I interrupted. I know you've been involved in at least 4 similar scams targeting wealthy men. I know you've been coaching Jake on how to manipulate me using our family relationships. I opened another folder and pulled out copies of their text messages. I also know that Dad never wrote anything about wanting us to work together, because this entire story is something you two made up. These are your text messages discussing how to fool me. Jake's face had gone from pale to red. You had our phones hacked? That's illegal. No, Jake, it's not. This was obtained through a legitimate legal investigation, which brings me to the best part. I opened a third folder and pulled out copies of his communications with various lawyers. I know you've been shopping around for attorneys who would help you file nuisance lawsuits against my company. I know your plan was to either manipulate me into giving you ownership or force me into a settlement through frivolous legal action. By now, both Jake and Melissa were looking like trapped animals. Jake stood up abruptly. You know what, David? Fuck you. I don't need your charity. I was trying to help you out of family loyalty, but clearly you don't give a damn about family. Sit down, Jake, I said firmly. We're not done. Something in my tone made him hesitate. See, the thing is, I do care about family. I care about protecting myself and my business from family members who think they can scam me. So I've taken some precautions. I opened the final folder and pulled out copies of the cease and desist letters Mike had prepared. These are legal notices formally warning both of you to stop making any claims about ownership in my company and to cease any attempts to interfere with my business. If you violate these terms, I will sue you for harassment, attempted fraud, and business interference. Melissa found her voice. You can't prove we did anything illegal. Maybe not criminal fraud, I agreed, but I can prove attempted extortion, harassment, and conspiracy to interfere with my business relationships. I can also prove that you've been using a false identity and have a history of similar scams. I leaned back in my chair, here's what's going to happen. You're both going to sign acknowledgments that you have no claim to any ownership in my company. You're going to agree to have no further contact with me, my employees, or my business partners. And Jake, you're going to tell Mom the truth about this whole ridiculous scheme. Jake's jaw dropped. I'm not telling Mom anything. She believes in us working together. Oh, but you are, I said, smiling for the first time since they'd arrived. Because if you don't, I'm going to send copies of this entire investigation to every member of our extended family, along with a detailed explanation of how you tried to defraud your own brother using Dad's memory. I pulled out my phone and showed them the draft email I'd prepared with about 30 family members in the recipient list. I'm also going to post it on social media and tag everyone we went to high school with. I think they'd be very interested to learn what Jake Morrison has been up to lately. Melissa looked like she was going to be sick. You wouldn't actually try me, I said flatly. I built this company from nothing while dealing with a family that never supported me. You think I'm going to let you destroy it with lies and manipulation? You picked the wrong target. Jake was staring at the email on my phone, probably calculating how many people would see it and how humiliating it would be. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to sign these agreements, leave my office, and never contact me again unless someone is dying. I want you to tell Mom that you lied about Dad's journal and that this whole partnership idea was a scheme you cooked up because you're unemployed and desperate. I stood up and walked around the table to face them directly. And I want both of you to understand that if you ever try anything like this again, if you ever mention my name to a lawyer, if you ever claim any connection to my business, if you ever come anywhere near my employees or my office, I will dedicate every resource I have to destroying your lives. I will sue you into bankruptcy. I will make sure everyone you know understands exactly what kind of people you are, and I will use every contact I have in the business world to make sure neither of you can ever find decent employment again. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Jake reached for the pen. This is really fucked up, David. he muttered as he signed the papers. No, Jake, I replied. What's fucked up is trying to steal from your own brother and using your dead father's memory to do it. What's fucked up is bringing a con artist into our family to help you commit fraud. What's fucked up is thinking you could manipulate me the same way Mom manipulated me when we were kids. Melissa signed next, her hand shaking slightly. There's one more thing, I said as they prepared to leave. Jake, I want you to call Mom right now and tell her the truth. I'm not. You're going to call her, put it on speaker, and explain that you made up the journal story because you wanted money from me. If you don't, that email goes out to the family in 1 hour. Jake's shoulders slumped in defeat. He pulled out his phone and dialed Mom's number. Hi, Mom, he said when she answered. I'm here with David, and I need to tell you something. Oh, that's wonderful. Are you boys finalizing the partnership? Jake looked at me with pure hatred in his eyes. No, Mom, there's not going to be a partnership. I need to tell you that I made up the story about Dad's journal. There was a long pause. What do you mean? I mean, Dad never wrote about wanting us to work together. I made that up because I thought I could convince David to give me part of his company. I could hear Mom's sharp intake of breath through the phone. Jake, what are you saying? I'm saying I lied to you and to David because I'm broke, and I thought this was a way to fix my problems. I'm sorry, Mom. I know this is disappointing. The silence stretched out for nearly 30 seconds before Mom spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. Jacob Morrison, how could you do this? How could you lie about your father's memory like that? For the first time since I'd known him, Jake looked genuinely ashamed. I'm sorry, Mom. I was desperate and I thought, you thought you could steal from your brother and drag me into it? She said, her voice getting stronger. You thought you could use me to pressure him into giving you something you had no right to. Mom, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, she snapped. My God, Jake, what has happened to you? Jake looked at me again, probably hoping I'd intervene, but I just stared back at him impassively. I'm disappointed in both of us, Mom continued. I'm disappointed in you for lying and trying to cheat your brother, and I'm disappointed in myself for believing you without question. David, are you there? I'm here, Mom. Honey, I am so sorry. I should have asked more questions. I should have realized. I just wanted so badly for you boys to have a relationship that I didn't stop to think about whether this made sense. I felt a tiny bit of my anger toward her soften, but only a tiny bit. Mom, we'll talk later. Right now, I need Jake and his girlfriend to leave my office. Jake has a girlfriend? Mom asked. Jake shot me a warning look, but I was done protecting him. Her real name is Miranda Walsh, and she specializes in conning money out of successful men by manipulating their family relationships. She and Jake have been planning this scam for months. The silence on the phone was deafening. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice cold as ice. Jake, you get yourself home right now. We are going to have a very long conversation. After Jake hung up, he and Melissa gathered their things and headed for the door. Jake paused at the threshold. David, I know you hate me right now, but we're still brothers. I looked at him for a long moment, thinking about everything we'd been through. The years of favoritism, the constant comparisons, the way he'd treated me growing up, and now this ultimate betrayal. No, Jake, I said finally. Brothers don't try to steal from each other. Brothers don't lie about their dead father to commit fraud. You're just someone I used to know who happens to share some DNA. He flinched like I'd hit him, but he didn't argue. After they left, I sat in my office for a while, processing everything that had happened. My assistant knocked on the door to check if I was okay. Apparently, the tension had been visible even through the glass walls. I called Sarah to tell her what had happened. She'd known about Jake's initial approach and had been suspicious from the start. I'm proud of you for standing up to them, she said. I know that couldn't have been easy. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For the first time in my life, I'd refused to be manipulated by family guilt and had protected what I'd worked so hard to build. Over the next few weeks, I heard through Mom that Jake had moved back in with her temporarily while he looked for work. Apparently, Melissa Miranda had disappeared immediately after our confrontation, leaving Jake to face the consequences alone. Mom called me a few days later to apologize again and to ask if there was any way I could forgive Jake. Mom, Jake is 32 years old, I told her. He's not some confused kid who made a mistake. He spent months planning to defraud me, brought a career criminal into our family, and tried to use Dad's memory to steal from me. Those aren't the actions of someone who deserves forgiveness. But he's your brother. No, Mom, he's your son, and you can have whatever relationship with him you want. But he's not my brother anymore. Brothers don't try to destroy each other. I wasn't completely heartless, though. A month later, when I heard that Jake was genuinely looking for work and had enrolled in a community college program to get some new skills. I had a friend who runs a small marketing company give him an interview. Jake got the job, an entry-level position that paid about a tenth of what he'd been hoping to steal from me, but it was honest work. I never told Jake that I'd helped him get the interview. I figured if he was really trying to turn his life around, he could do it without knowing I'd been involved. As for Mom and me, we're slowly rebuilding our relationship. She's made a real effort to understand why the favoritism hurts so much and has acknowledged that she contributed to Jake's entitlement issues. We have lunch once a month now, and she's made it clear that she's proud of what I've accomplished. Story 5. My nephew yelled, "Dad says people like you don't earn nice things," then smashed my father's watch while his parents laughed. 2 years funding their entire life ended that night. Next came eviction notices, restraining orders, and police at their door. Hey, Reddit, thought helping family would bring us closer. Instead, it blew up in my face with lies, threats, and cops at the door. Before all that chaos, let me start from the beginning. My name's Lucas Hale. I'm 38, live just outside of Flagstaff with my daughter Rowan. I run a small auto shop and still turn wrenches. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills, and I like the quiet. Her mom's been out of the picture for years. That part of my life went bad a long time ago, but I've managed to keep things steady since. Or at least I thought I had. My younger brother Marcus is 34. He married this woman, Sienna, 5 years ago. They've got 2 kids, Caleb, who's 10, and Emery, who's 7. When Marcus lost his job 2 years back, I stepped in to help. Rent, car loan, kids' school tuition, I covered it all. I was the listed payer on their school account. Our district runs kindergarten through 6th grade on one campus, so all 3 kids are at the same school. Rowan and Caleb even share lunch and recess. Last month was my birthday. I didn't want a big thing, just dinner with family at a nice place downtown. I booked it 3 weeks early. Outdoor seating, good food, quiet enough so Rowan wouldn't feel overwhelmed. She's 11, shy, and birthdays have always been our thing. Marcus and Sienna showed up late. They always do. Marcus barely said hello before sitting down. Sienna smiled like we were best friends, even though she rarely calls unless she needs something. Caleb ran straight to the tables, loud as ever, while Emery trailed behind with a tablet in her hand. Rowan sat beside me, excited about the creme brulee she'd been talking about for days. My mom was already there, making small talk about the weather. It felt normal for maybe 5 minutes. Then Caleb started. He climbed on chairs, grabbed bread rolls with his hands, talked over everyone. Marcus told him twice to settle down, but didn't mean it. Sienna laughed like it was cute. Nobody else said anything. That's how it always goes with them. Caleb gets away with everything because calling him out means drama, and my mom avoids drama like it's fire. I kept my head down. It was my birthday. I just wanted peace. Dinner came and went without too much chaos. I thought maybe we were in the clear. Then the waitress brought out the cake, a single slice with a candle. I didn't even ask for it. The restaurant does it automatically. People clapped. I smiled, said thanks. That's when it happened. My dad passed away 6 years ago. Left me his old watch, nothing expensive but real sentimental. Worn leather band, small crack on the glass, kept it clean and working because it was one of the few things of his I had left. While I was leaning forward to blow out the candle, Caleb slipped behind me. Before anyone could say a word, he yanked the watch right off my wrist. "Hey!" I started, but he was already holding it up like a trophy. "Dad says people like you don't earn nice things," he yelled, loud enough for the whole patio to hear. And then he threw it. Over the railing. It hit the concrete walkway below with this sound I'll never forget. Metal on stone, sharp and final. The strap snapped. The back popped off. The glass shattered completely. For a second, nobody moved. Then Sienna laughed. Like, full-on laughed. Tears in her eyes kind of laugh. Marcus smirked but didn't say a word. Rowan froze in her seat, eyes wide. My mom muttered something about boys being boys. I didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I just stood up, grabbed my jacket, and told Rowan we were leaving. Paid the bill on the way out. Nobody stopped us. Nobody apologized. I picked up what was left of the watch on the sidewalk. The strap was in 2 pieces. The back plate was bent. It was done for. Rowan didn't say anything in the car. She just held the box with the leftover cake on her lap. I think she knew I didn't want to talk right then. When we got home, I put the watch in a drawer. Sat there for a minute, staring at the wall. 2 years. Rent, car payments, tuition, thousands of dollars. All the times I said yes when I should have said no. And this is what I get? I opened my laptop, logged into the bank account, canceled every single payment tied to Marcus Hale. Rent, gone. Car loan, gone. School tuition, Gone. Somewhere along the line, the car autopay had failed 2 months back. I hadn't caught it until now. Not a word to anybody. That night, I didn't answer the phone. Marcus called twice. Sienna texted some fake sweet, thanks for dinner message like nothing happened. They had no idea what was coming. By morning, the first text came in from Marcus. No, good morning. No, hey, what happened last night? Just, car's gone. Did you cancel something? I didn't reply. Looks like the loan had already hit active repo status. Canceling my autopay just meant the repo truck came the next morning. I let it sit. He called twice, straight to voicemail. By noon, Sienna texted me. Fake sweet like always. Hey Lucas, did you forget the car loan this month? No biggie, just wondering. I didn't answer her either. By dinner time, Mom called. She didn't even say hi before asking, Lucas, did you change something with Marcus's car payment? Yeah, I said. I stopped paying it. I didn't know you were paying his bills, she said. Nobody did, I said. She paused like she didn't know what to say next. Oh, okay. Well, Marcus said it got repossessed this morning. Yep, I said. Another pause. Then, maybe you should have given him a heads up first. I gave him 2 years of heads up, I said. She sighed the way moms do when they want you to feel guilty, but don't want to say it out loud. By the next day, Marcus switched from confused to mad. Are you kidding me? You couldn't even warn us? How are we supposed to get to work now? Work? He hadn't had a job in 2 years. At least not that I knew of. Maybe he'd picked up shifts somewhere and just hadn't said. He called 3 more times before noon. Left a voicemail saying, we can talk this out like adults if you just pick up. I didn't. Later that night, Sienna sent a longer text. Sienna, look, I don't know what your problem is, but punishing the kids isn't fair. They didn't do anything. Didn't do anything? I pictured Caleb on that patio, holding my dad's watch like a trophy. Another text followed. Sienna, rent's due this week too. Can you at least send that so we don't fall behind? Just until Marcus finds steady work? I typed out a response, then deleted it. Better to let the silence do the talking. The next day, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the window. Marcus. I opened it just enough to step outside. What? He looked rough. Hoodie, unshaven, circles under his eyes. You couldn't give me 1 month? Just one? I kept my voice calm. I gave you 2 years. He shifted like he didn't know what to say next. Sienna's freaking out. Rent's due. Kids need school stuff. You can't just cut us off without warning. I just did, I said. His jaw clenched. So this is about the watch? That's what this is? It's about everything, I said. He laughed without humor. You've always thought you were better than me. I shook my head. No, I just stopped letting you use me. Before he could answer, I closed the door. He stood there another minute, then left without knocking again. That night, Rowan sat at the table doing homework. She looked up once and asked, Are Uncle Marcus and Aunt Sienna mad at us? They're mad at me. Not you, I said. She hesitated, then said, Caleb told some kids at school that we're broke now, that you can't pay for stuff anymore. I stopped what I was doing. When did he say that? Today at recess. She looked down at her paper. He said his mom told him you're selfish. I clenched my jaw but kept my voice even. Don't listen to him. She nodded but didn't look convinced. 2 days later, Marcus sent a picture of Caleb holding a piece of paper with SORRY written in blue crayon. He feels bad about the watch. Can we put this behind us? No mention of Sienna laughing. No mention of Caleb yelling in front of the whole patio. I didn't answer. By the weekend, Marcus sent another text. Landlord says rent's late. You know we can't cover this place without your help. You really gonna let your niece and nephew get kicked out? Still no apology. Just guilt. That same night, Sienna posted on Facebook. Some people love to act generous until times get tough. Then they show their true colors. But people started asking questions in the comments. Sienna ignored them. More missed calls? More be a family texts? More vague booking? I saved everything. Monday morning, Rowan didn't want to go to school. She said she had a stomachache, but she looked fine. I asked her what was really wrong, and after a little pushing, she said Caleb shoved her backpack off the bench at lunch and called her a crybaby when she told him to stop. I drove her anyway, but my hands were tight on the wheel the whole way. By lunchtime, I was getting texts from Marcus again. Marcus, why'd you tell Rowan to be rude to Caleb at school? He says she cursed at him. That's not okay. I ignored it. That evening, Rowan told me Caleb had kicked her soccer ball over the fence after school and laughed when she had to ask the teacher to get it. I sent one text to Marcus. Me. Tell your kid to leave Rowan alone. No answer. The next day, there was a long scratch down the side of my truck. Not a random ding. This went from the front headlight to the tailgate in one slow line. A few feet below it, someone had written the word JERK in the dust on my rear bumper. I stood there staring at it for a full minute before getting my phone out. I texted Marcus. Truck scratched. Know anything about it? 5 minutes later, nope. Another text right after. Maybe don't blame us for everything going wrong in your life. That night, Rowan said she saw Caleb near the parking lot after school, laughing with two of his friends. I didn't say anything to her about the truck. No point. The next day, I called the restaurant for my birthday dinner, asked if they had cameras covering the patio. The manager said yes and offered to send me the footage once he got permission from the owner. When it came through, there it was on screen. Caleb grabbing my watch, yelling, throwing it over the railing. Sienna doubled over, laughing. Marcus sitting there like nothing happened. I saved the video. By Thursday, another text from Marcus. Marcus. Rent's late now. Landlord is calling. What are you doing? You know we can't afford this place without you. Not my problem. No response. That same night, Sienna posted on Facebook again. Family should be there when times get tough. Sad when they turn their back on kids. She turned off the comments after 3 people asked why she couldn't get a job. The next morning, Rowan told me Caleb called her garbage girl in front of the other kids. Said his mom told him I'm too cheap to pay for anything now. That was it. I drove to the school, asked to speak to the principal, told him what was going on, asked if Caleb could stay away from Rowan during school hours. The principal said they'd keep an eye on things. Not a formal no contact. Saturday morning, I walked outside and found the driver's side window of my truck cracked in a star shape, like someone had hit it with a key or rock. I called Mom, told her everything. The bullying, the scratches, the window, the video. She just sighed and said, maybe I should talk to Marcus before things got worse. Things are already worse, I said, and hung up. That afternoon, I called the non-emergency police line, gave them the video of the birthday dinner, photos of the truck, the cracked window, told them who I thought did it. The manager also hinted something else went missing that night. They said an officer would call me back after reviewing everything. 2 hours later, Marcus texted again. Marcus, Sienna says you're trying to ruin our lives. You've made your point. Enough is enough. I didn't answer, because this wasn't even close to enough. The officer called Monday afternoon, asked me to bring the video, photos, and everything I had. I drove down there after work. 2 officers watched the birthday footage twice on the small monitor. Property damage, harassment, possible child involvement, one officer said while scribbling in his notebook. We'll open a case. You believe the same people vandalized your truck? Yes, I said. Them or the kid they're letting run wild. He nodded. Anyone else have a reason? No, just them. Before I left, the second officer said, if there's more, threats, vandalism, anything, save it all. Messages, voicemails, video. The more you have, the cleaner the case. I nodded and walked out, holding the USB drive like it weighed 100 pounds. That evening, Marcus sent the first text. Marcus, Mom said you went to the cops. What the hell, Lucas? I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, Marcus, this is family business. You don't drag cops into it. I set the phone face down on the counter. More posts, more sideways swipes, more silence when people asked for facts. I screenshotted and moved on. Next day at noon, the officer called back. The restaurant had filed its own report. Turns out Caleb didn't just toss my watch. He walked out with a server's tablet after we left. The camera caught him shoving it under his hoodie. The officer said it looked practiced. Your brother returned it the next morning, the officer said. Claimed the kid found it outside. The police didn't buy it. Now there were 2 incidents linked to the same family. My truck and the tablet theft. That afternoon, Rowan told me Caleb shoved her again at recess. This time he knocked her notebook out of her hands. She said he laughed when the pages went flying in the dirt. I called Marcus right then. He didn't answer. I texted him instead. Keep your kid away from Rowan or I call the cops tonight. 10 minutes later, he texted back, he's just a kid. Don't overreact. Overreact? I drove straight to the school, walked into the front office and asked for the principal. Told him Caleb was harassing my daughter repeatedly, shoving her, mocking her, spreading garbage about me. I wanted it on record. The principal looked surprised but nodded, said they'd speak to Caleb and his parents. I said, do that. And if he lays a hand on her again, it won't be you dealing with it. Thursday morning, the officer called again. Said they were pulling Marcus and Sienna in for formal statements about the tablet and the vandalism. Asked if I wanted to press charges if the evidence lined up. Yes, I said. I hung up and started printing everything. Texts, screenshots, photos of the truck, stills from the video. That afternoon, Sienna texted me for the first time in days. Sienna, whatever the cops told you, this is ridiculous. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Just pay the rent until Marcus finds work, and we can all move on. I didn't answer. 20 minutes later, Sienna, you've always hated me. This is personal, isn't it? I shut my phone off. Friday morning, the officer called back again. The case was moving forward. Marcus and Sienna were scheduled to come in the following week for questioning. The combination of the restaurant footage, the tablet theft, my truck photos, Rowan being shoved, and Sienna's attempt to get pickup details meant the police were officially taking it seriously, including a possible custodial interference count. When I got home, Mom was standing on my porch. Maybe stop this before it gets worse, she said, as soon as I got out of the truck. Marcus says the kids are upset, says you're trying to ruin their lives. They shoved Rowan at school, I said. You tell me again who's ruining lives. She looked down at her shoes, didn't answer. Saturday night, Marcus left a voicemail. His voice wasn't shaking. It was tight with anger. You think you're better than me? Fine. But you drag cops into this, you'll regret it. I saved the voicemail. Then I sent it straight to the officer handling my case. Because this wasn't just about a watch anymore. Wasn't about rent or car payments, or even the truck. They went after my daughter, and that ended all discussion. For Monday, 8:12 a.m., the school front office called while I was tightening a belt on a customer's truck. Mr. Hale, did you phone us earlier about Rowan's schedule and pickup routine? No, I said. Why? We had a caller saying they were you. We didn't give anything out. We record those calls. Do you want the audio? Yes, email it. I washed the grease off, sat in the break room with my phone on speaker, and hit play. Fake friendly voice, soft, trying to sound helpful. The little breath at the end of sentences gave it away. It was Sienna. Whether she meant to snatch Rowan for a scare or just stalk our routine, I didn't care. I forwarded the file to the detective with one line, "Voice is Sienna, impersonating me to get pickup times." He called 10 minutes later. "Bring the recording in and file an addendum. We'll treat it as attempted impersonation with potential custodial interference. Also, I recommend you apply for a temporary restraining order. Today." I closed the shop an hour early, drove straight to the station, signed the supplemental report, handed over the audio and my notes. The detective printed out a list of steps for the TRO, circled the court address, and told me where to park. The courthouse clerk slid a packet across the counter. I filled in names, dates, the birthday video, the truck photos, Rowan being shoved, and now the phone call. The judge saw me same day. He read quietly, asked 3 questions, signed, and handed the packet to a deputy. "Orders active upon service," the deputy said. "No contact. No social media. No third-party messages. 200 feet from you, Rowan, your home, and her school." I drove to the school, gave the office a copy. The principal made 2 sets, one for the front desk, one for the counselor. He added a note to Rowan's file. Only Lucas Hale or the listed after-school program may pick her up. I added 2 backup names from the shop just in case, Darren and Shauna, people who actually answer their phones. At 5:41 p.m., the deputy called. "Order served on Sienna Sorrell." She answered the door. Says she understands the terms. At 6:03 p.m., Marcus texted a photo of the paperwork in Sienna's hand. "Marcus, you did this to my family." "Me. She tried to get my daughter's schedule. Stay away from us." No reply. After dinner, I installed a new camera on the porch and another pointing at the driveway. Sticky night air, bugs tapping the light, screws biting into wood. I set alerts to people only, clipped the signs straighter, and tested the feed from my phone. Clear picture to the street. At 8:47 p.m., a gray SUV idled at the corner with parking lights on. It sat there 3 minutes, then rolled away. I zoomed, got most of the plate, wrote it down, sent it to the detective. He said he'd check it against their address. Tuesday drop-off, I clocked every car like a goalie. Half a block down, a silver sedan sat with the engine running. Woman in large sunglasses holding her phone up. I took a photo, called 911, gave the license and the restraining order number. 2 patrol cars rolled in quiet. By the time I looped back, the sedan had pulled forward to the crosswalk. An officer stood by her window with the other behind the car. Sienna. She didn't look at me. The officer checked her ID, wrote something on a clipboard, and pointed away from the campus. She turned the wheel hard and left without drama. The officer walked over. "She's been warned," he said. "We've documented it as a potential violation and a potential attempted custodial interference incident. If she shows again, call immediately." At lunch, the school called again. Someone new had tried to sign in as aunt. Wrong name, Wrong number. The front desk shut it down fast. They flagged Rowan's profile with a bright red banner and asked if I wanted a password on pickups. I gave them one. 4 random words. I printed it out and put it in my wallet. At 3:22 p.m., my camera caught a figure walking up my driveway in a hood and flat brim hat. He got within 5 feet of the truck, saw the lens move, and ducked back toward the street. I saved the clip, pulled a still, sent both to the detective with the timestamp. At 4:06 p.m., Marcus texted a photo of a paper taped to their door. Pay or quit in big letters. Marcus. Eviction notice. Kids are crying. This is on you. Me. It's on your choices. Marcus. You'll pay for this. Saved. At 5:30 p.m., I met the detective in the lobby. He'd pulled the gray SUV's plate from the night before, registered to Sienna's sister. He added the porch clip to my file, logged Marcus's text as a threat, and asked if I wanted to include him in the order. Not yet, I said. Document everything. He nodded. We are. For what it's worth, the restaurant footage got us a confession on the tablet. Found it turned into, took it and brought it back. That helps. On the way home, I bought motion lights, more screws, and a window sensor for Rowan's room. Took an hour to set it all up. I showed Rowan the app. If anything beeps at night, you get me first. Don't open the door. Don't look out the window. She nodded. Okay. At 7:12 p.m., my mom called. Sienna says you had her pulled over at the school. She violated a court order, I said. Mom went quiet. Marcus says they're losing their place. They had 2 years with my help. I'm done. I don't like any of this, she said. Me neither. At 9:18 p.m., someone rang my doorbell twice and then pounded like they owned the wood. The porch camera lit up Marcus's face plain as day. I hit record on my phone and opened the door just enough to block the hinge. Back up, I said. We need to talk, he said. His eyes were red, not from anything but from not sleeping or crying or both. You can't do this to us. You've been doing it to us for years, I said. You put your kid on mine. Your wife tried to get her schedule. You're done here. She was scared, he snapped. Cops? Court? Over what? A scratch and a joke? That joke was my father's watch, I said. The scratch was my truck. The shove was my child. Back. Up. He leaned on the frame like he might push. I held his stare. He blinked first. I didn't touch your girl, he said. Sienna told Caleb to, look, it got messy. We can fix this. You used to help. Those days are over. He dropped his hands from the frame, stepped off the mat, and pointed at the camera. You recording this? Yes. He laughed once, a dry little sound, and walked off the porch. I called non-emergency and gave them the time, the clip, and what he said. They logged it and told me to call 911 if he came back. At 10:26 p.m., the detective texted, Judge approved an extension hearing in 2 weeks. Keep logging everything. If she shows near the school again, that's a charge. I set the phone face down and listened to the new motion lights click off one by one. The house felt tight but steady. The app showed all green sensors. Porch camera idle, driveway clear. They wanted me scared. I wasn't. I was busy. The deputy's voicemail hit at 9:02 a.m. Statements for Marcus and Sienna set for Thursday. Impersonation audio logged. Keep your cameras on, he said. We're building the file. By noon, the landlord taped another notice on their door. Darren texted me a photo. 5 days to pay or vacate. At 1, the private school emailed about account compliance. Marcus rolled up at the shop at 2:30. I met him outside the bay so my guys could keep working. He had the pay or quit notice folded in his fist. You win, he said. Happy? Turn the engine off, I said. And back up. He clicked the key, stepped once. The letter shook. Eviction process starts next week. School locked our portal. They're pulling the kids until we catch up. Is that what you wanted? I wanted you to act right, I said. You could have warned me. Instead, you turned this into court dates and cops. You turned it when your kid ripped a watch off my wrist and your wife tried to get my daughter's schedule. He stepped closer. Darren stood in the doorway, phone ready. Marcus lowered his voice. Sienna's upset. She just wanted you to feel what it's like when someone takes something from you. Thanks for confirming, I said. Now hear me. Keep Sienna and Caleb away from Rowan. Stay off my porch. Don't call the school. Don't send cousins. Don't run messages through mom. Stop, or I add you to the order. He smirked. You don't have an order on me. Yet. He flicked the letter at my chest. I didn't take it. It bounced and fell. You'll throw family away over a watch and a late bill? That watch was Dad's. Those late bills were 2 years of my money. Pick up your paper. He left it. Tell your girl to stop telling teachers lies about Caleb. I took one step. Don't say her name again. Smile for the camera, Darren said. Marcus eyed the phone, then me. He took 2 slow steps back, turned, and got in the car. This ends when you stop, he said through the window. No, I said. It ends when you do. He drove off. At 4, the detective called. Quick update. Restaurant kid admitted the tablet. We're pulling Sienna's phone records on the impersonation and logging your porch clip with the SUV plate. For your truck, we're trying for prints near the gas cap. Keep saving everything. Pick up next morning. I parked in front of the office doors. Rowan came out with the counselor. The counselor read me the pickup password. We matched it. As we crossed, Marcus's car rolled past the crosswalk. He stared straight ahead. He circled the block but didn't stop. Back home, I saw a tear at the mail slot, like someone had pried it. Envelopes scattered on the rug instead of stacked. Nothing missing. I still photographed everything and slid the prints into the folder. At 7:38 p.m., camera pinged. A figure came down the sidewalk, hood up. He stopped at the curb, looked at the lens, and pulled the hood back. Marcus. He held his palms out like he was harmless. I opened the door with the chain on. Leave, I said. Sienna's court date is set, he said. They're saying impersonation, harassment, property stuff. We can't do this. The kids cry every night. Stop dragging them through it. You did this, he said. You and your pride. My pride didn't key my truck or shove a 6th grader. She's sorry about the call. She's sorry she got caught, I said. Plain ask then. Help with rent and tuition for 2 months. We move somewhere cheaper. I'll get day work. We get off your back. Clean slate. No, I said. I'm done. You really want me to leave with nothing? After everything I've done for you? You mean the years I paid your bills? He took 1 step up. The chain clicked. I put my hand on the frame. You've got 5 seconds, I said. Then I'm dialing. He didn't move. 5. Lucas. 4. You won't. 3. He stepped back. You're not family anymore. 2. He turned, hopped off the step, and walked to the sidewalk. He stopped, looked back and said, You'll regret this. Then he kept moving. I called non-emergency and logged it. The dispatcher said an officer would swing by. 10 minutes later, a cruiser rolled slow, spotlit the sidewalk, and the officer took a copy of the clip. He said they could issue a trespass warning next time. I emailed the clip to the detective too and printed a log for the folder. Dated it. After he left, the porch light buzzed, and the night went quiet again. The detective texted at 9:54 p.m. Lab pulled partial prints near your gas cap. We'll know more soon. Keep tight. I locked the door, checked the sensors, and watched the camera feed settle back to still. By the end of the week, the detective called before sunrise. Forensics said the partials from my truck's gas cap were consistent with Sienna. They'd verify once they had fresh prints. That was enough for probable cause. Between the impersonation call, the restaurant footage, the tablet admission, and destruction of property, the file was thick. A judge signed the warrant before close of business. At 9:14 a.m., a deputy knocked with the signed paperwork. Charges listed: criminal damage and attempted impersonation tied to a minor's school. The detective said they were reviewing custodial interference. He asked if I wanted to be informed when they picked her up. I said yes. By 11, a text from Darren at the shop. Cops just left Marcus's place. Took Sienna. Quiet. Kids stayed inside. Half an hour later, Marcus blew up my phone. 5 calls, 3 voicemails, all ignored. Then 1 text. You proud of yourself? I saved it. At 2, the school counselor called. Per the detective's notice to the district, the front office had been told about the arrest and would keep extra eyes on Rowan at dismissal in case anyone tried something stupid. I thanked her and drove to the school anyway. Sat where the cameras could see me, engine running. Marcus's car didn't show. Friday morning, the detective called again. Sienna booked and released with a court date next month. After booking, the lab confirmed the partial prints from my gas cap matched Sienna. Probable fines, maybe probation. He said charges against Marcus were under review for possible conspiracy if they could tie him to the vandalism or threats. He asked if I wanted a protective order added on Marcus now that Sienna's was active. Yes, I said. Same terms. They served me at work. Protective order, same as hers. Can't even come near you now. You happy? I didn't answer. Saturday, my mom called. She didn't ask how I was. She asked if it was true Marcus and Sienna had to be out by next week, that the school dropped the kids from the roster until tuition cleared. I told her I hadn't asked and didn't care. They're moving in with Sienna's sister, she said, like that meant anything to me. Sunday night, Marcus showed up one last time. Porch camera caught him pacing at the sidewalk, looking at the windows like he wasn't sure what he came to say. I stepped outside far enough the camera saw both of us. You win, he said finally. His voice was flat, like the fight leaked out of him. This wasn't about winning, I said. She's scared, Lucas. Court date, eviction, school calling about transfers. She says you wanted to ruin us. You ruined yourselves, I said. He shoved his hands in his hoodie pocket. We were family. You stopped acting like it the second you let your kid lay hands on mine. She told him to, he said quietly. She said make you feel small. You stayed and let it happen, I said. He didn't deny it. You've got the order now, I said. Next time you show up here, I call the cops before you hit the porch. His jaw shifted, but he didn't move closer. He just said, kids don't understand any of this. They'll figure it out, I said. They'll know who burned the bridge. He turned without another word, walked back to the sidewalk, and kept going until the camera lost him in the dark. Tuesday, the detective emailed me the case summary for my records. Restraining orders active. Court dates set. Evidence logged. Texts, videos, photos, voicemails, police reports, school statements. He said the DA was reviewing everything for potential stacking, including attempted custodial interference, since the impersonation involved a minor's information. That same afternoon, the school confirmed Rowan's pickup restrictions would stay locked until I asked otherwise. Password system active. Cameras at the gate flagged on my phone whenever a car idled too long. By Friday, Darren texted me a photo of Marcus and Sienna loading boxes into a U-Haul at their old place. No wave, no call, no message. Just leaving. Rowan and I ate takeout on the tailgate that night, motion lights clicking on and off behind us. She asked if we'd still see them at Grandma's for holidays. No, I said. Not for a long time. She didn't look surprised. Saturday morning, the detective called one last time. They'd added a violation of the protective order and attempted custodial interference to Sienna's charges based on the fake calls to the school and the pickup attempt after the order was served. Court would handle the rest. Anything else you want to report? He asked. No, I said. It's over now. The next week, I changed my number. Switched to paperless billing on everything. Password protected my mail forwarding, bank accounts, even the shop utilities. Clean break. One night, Rowan and I drove to the mountains. Phones off, music low, just the two of us. She asked if things would be quiet now. Yeah, I said. Finally. She leaned her head on the window and didn't say anything else. I didn't either, because there was nothing left to say. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 6. My parents told me she's gonna die anyway, so why waste money? When my daughter needed life-saving surgery, they gave $150,000 to my brother instead, and now I own their house, their debts, and their ruined reputation. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the type to post here, but the last year has been something else. Between my daughter's diagnosis, my family's betrayal, and the way things spiraled, I ended up seeing a side of people I wish I hadn't. I've been carrying this story around for a while, and I figured if anyone would understand, it'd be you guys. So buckle up, because this one starts with desperation and ends with something I never expected. You know how people always say, family will be there when it matters most? Yeah, whoever came up with that line never met my family. 2 months ago, I sat in a freezing doctor's office while he explained, with that rehearsed calm tone doctors use when they know they're detonating your life, that my 7-year-old daughter had a tumor pressing against her brain. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't try soft words. He looked me dead in the eye and said, she needs surgery within 2 months. Without it, she won't make it. I didn't flinch. I didn't break down. I asked the only question that mattered, how much? 70,000, he said, flipping through charts like he was reading me grocery prices. 70 grand. 2 months. That was the timer he just slapped on my daughter's life. Now here's the thing about me. I don't panic, ever. I don't do meltdowns. My brain doesn't go into despair mode. It goes into strategy. Options, calculations. What's the fastest way to close this gap? Insurance? Already tried. Denied. Bank loan? 3 banks, 3 rejections. Side hustles? I was already working nights on top of my day job. The math wasn't adding up, no matter how many late nights I crunched the numbers. But one thing was non-negotiable. She was getting that surgery. Period. Which meant, like it or not, I had to look at my last option. My parents. Now, quick background. My parents aren't exactly the kind and selfless type. They live in this delusional little bubble where they think they're the Kennedys of the neighborhood. My dad walks around quoting business advice he clearly pulled off Facebook Reels, and my mom backs him up like he's the second coming of Warren Buffett. They've spent their whole lives worshiping my older brother, the golden child, while treating me like background noise. But this wasn't about me. This was about their granddaughter. And I figured, even entitled people can't ignore life or death, right? That night, I drove over to their house. I didn't grovel. I didn't cry. I walked in, looked my dad straight in the eye, and said, I need $70,000. It's for her surgery. She's got 2 months. I'll pay it back every dime. My mom gave me that fake sympathetic face you give someone when you're not actually listening. My dad didn't even lower his newspaper at first. We'll think about it, he finally muttered, like I'd just asked him to co-sign a car loan. I stared at him. Think about it? It's her life. He shrugged. Times are tough. Money doesn't grow on trees. That was it. Conversation over. They went back to their cozy evening like nothing had been said. I didn't argue. I didn't slam the door. I just walked out, jaw locked, because here's something I live by. When people show you who they are, you don't waste time trying to change them. You take notes, you remember, and you use it later. Driving home, the weight of everything hit me. Not panic, not despair, more like an iron bar pressing on my chest. My parents had basically told me my daughter's life wasn't worth their money. And the twisted part? A small part of me still hoped they'd call in a day or two and say, we've thought about it, we'll help. Hope is dangerous. When I walked into our small apartment that night, my daughter was awake in bed, hugging her old stuffed panda. She looked up at me with those big eyes that could slice through armor. Daddy? She whispered. Yeah, kiddo? I sat down on the edge of her bed. Am I gonna die like mommy? That question hit harder than anything the doctor said. It's a big question for a small kid. I leaned in, smoothed her hair back, and said gently, no, honey. You're going to grow up and become a beautiful young girl. She smiled a little, still clutching her panda. Promise? I nodded once. I promise. Daddy always keeps his promises. She believed me. And in that moment, that belief wasn't just comfort. It was fuel. When she drifted off, I sat there for a while, staring at the ceiling. My parents' words kept replaying in my head. We'll think about it. Think about it? Number. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for them. If I had to crawl through broken glass to make that $70,000, I'd do it. But the crack of hope I left open, the thought that maybe family would step up, was about to burn me worse than anything. Because while I was breaking myself to save my daughter, my family was already plotting something else entirely. Something that would make me realize just how delusional, entitled, and ignorant they really were. And when I found out, it didn't just kill whatever trust I had left. It lit the fuse for everything that came after. The setup was almost laughable. A week after my parents brushed me off, they called, voices sugary sweet, inviting me to dinner. Important news, they said. Big family update. I should have known better, but that flicker of hope is hard to kill. Maybe they had come to their senses. Maybe this was their way of saying, we'll cover the surgery. So I went. When I walked into their house, it was staged like some kind of event. Candles, a spread of store-bought food, wine bottles open, my dad in a button-down, my mom smiling like she was hosting royalty, and my brother, already smirking, swirling a glass like he was celebrating. There he is, my brother said, loud, fake cheerful. Perfect timing. I sat down, kept my face neutral. My mom raised her glass. We wanted to share wonderful news. Your father and I decided to make a major investment. My brother stood, puffing his chest. Mom and Dad gave me $150,000 to launch my business project. I'm officially funded. They all clinked glasses, laughing and cheering like they'd just announced a Nobel Prize. I stared at them, then said flatly, wait, you gave him $150,000? My dad smirked. That's right. He has vision. He's going to build something real. I leaned forward, voice low and sharp. You told me last week you'd think about helping with my daughter's surgery. She needs 70. 70. That's not even half of what you just threw at him. Did you even consider it? The table went quiet for half a second. My brother broke it with a chuckle. Come on, man. You can't compare a medical bill to an actual investment. One is an asset. The other is just an expense. My mom nodded, sipping her wine. Sweetheart, we sympathize with you. We really do. But you have to be realistic. She's sick. And even if you spend that money, who's to say it even works? Why waste it when we can help your brother create something that lasts? I froze. My jaw tightened. Are you saying my daughter isn't worth it? My dad finally set his glass down, looking straight at me. She's going to die anyway, son. The doctors just won't admit it. Better to invest in something with actual returns than throw money at a lost cause. That was it. The mask came off. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so insane I needed to release it somehow. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. You know, I came here thinking maybe, just maybe, you had a shred of decency left. Instead, you're celebrating funding your golden boy while writing off your granddaughter as bad business. You're not investors. You're clowns. My brother's smug grin cracked. Don't talk to them like that. They made the smart choice. Smart choice? I snapped back. You're 35 and still living off their wallet. You've never built a damn thing in your life. You think this makes you some kind of mogul? All it makes you is a parasite with a bigger allowance. My mom gasped like I'd cursed in church. My dad's face went red. Watch your mouth. You're ungrateful. You come here with your hand out, and when we choose to support someone who actually deserves it, you insult us? I leaned across the table, calm but razor sharp. Deserves it? My daughter's fighting for her life, and you call that undeserving? You're delusional. You're so obsessed with playing kingmakers that you can't even see the rot you've raised in him, or the rot in yourselves. For the first time, they didn't have a comeback. My brother muttered, "You're just jealous," under his breath. But even he didn't sound convinced. I stood, tossed my napkin onto the table. Enjoy your little toast. Just remember, when she pulls through, and when I rebuild from this, you're going to wish you hadn't said half the things you just said. Because I don't forget. I turned toward the door. My mom called after me, voice shaking, "You'll regret disrespecting this family." I looked over my shoulder. No, you'll regret underestimating me. Then I left. When I got home, my daughter was still awake, sitting up in bed with her panda. "How was dinner?" she asked softly. I sat beside her, kissed her forehead. It was exactly what I needed. "Did they help?" she whispered. I shook my head. "No, but don't worry. Daddy's got this." Her little hand squeezed mine. "Promise?" "I promise," I said. And unlike them, when I make a promise, I keep it. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at bills, replaying my dad's words over and over. She's going to die anyway. That was the moment the fuse didn't just light. It roared. I wasn't just saving my daughter anymore. I was preparing to burn down the empire of ignorance and entitlement they'd built around themselves. And when I was done, they'd wish they'd treated 70 grand like the best investment they ever could have made. But at that point, I was running out of time. The doctor's deadline wasn't going to wait for my family to grow a conscience. My daughter needed surgery, and I had to make a move fast. The only real asset I had left was my stake in a small construction supply business I'd built with two friends years back. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. I'd poured sweat into it. Long hours, weekends, late-night runs to meet clients. That business was my safety net, my long-term play for my daughter's future. And now I had to gut it. I went to my partners and told them I needed out. One of them, Greg, tried to talk me down. "Man, don't do this. We'll figure out another way." I shook my head. There is no other way. She needs the surgery. The doctors aren't bluffing. Greg looked sick but nodded. The other guy, Todd, was already running numbers in his head. "All right, but you're going to take a hit. Fast sales don't pay fair." That was an understatement. Here's where my dad slithered back in. He helpfully said he knew a guy who specialized in fast cash deals. He's a friend of the family. Old school. Handles things quietly. You'll get paid in a week. I should have smelled it. Hell, I did smell it. But desperation has a way of muting your instincts. I couldn't risk weeks of back and forth with brokers. Every day was another day my daughter's tumor pressed deeper into her brain. So I agreed. Selling real estate takes weeks, and I didn't have that. I offloaded the business stake for fast cash, then listed the apartment to sell after the surgery. The deal moved lightning fast, which should have been another red flag. Paperwork shoved in front of me. Numbers way below market value. My share of the business was worth at least $200,000. I walked away with 87. It was a gut punch, but it was cash in hand. Enough to pay the surgeon, enough to get her into that operating room. That night, while my daughter clutched her panda and asked if she could bring it with her to the hospital, I told her yes. And I signed the final documents. The surgery day was hell. 8 hours pacing the sterile hospital hallway. Every beep of the monitors behind those doors driving nails into my brain. When the doctor finally came out and said, "We got it," I exhaled for the first time in weeks. She survived. That was all that mattered. But victory felt tainted. Because while I should have been celebrating, I kept replaying the sale in my head. The buyer had barely looked me in the eye. The paperwork was sloppy. And my dad had pushed him too hard, like he wanted the deal done yesterday. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled the sale documents out of the folder and ran the buyer's name through public records. What I found made my stomach twist. The buyer wasn't some random businessman. He was a family friend I vaguely remembered from cookouts years back. One of those guys always bragging about cash deals and shady property flips. And here's the kicker. I stumbled across a transaction filed right after the sale. A consulting fee listed as $20,000. The recipient? My brother. My pulse spiked. I dug further and found another transfer. 10 grand. Straight into my parents' joint account. That's when it clicked. It wasn't just a lowball deal, it was a setup. My dad had funneled me straight into a shark's mouth, and my own family had taken a finder's fee while I was drowning. They didn't just refuse to help me, they profited off my desperation. I sat there staring at the papers, hands shaking, but not from sadness, from anger. White-hot, calculated anger. They celebrated my brother's business project with $150,000, then lined their pockets with 30 more off my back. Meanwhile, I was sleeping on a hospital cot, living on vending machine coffee, praying my daughter would wake up and smile at me again. That was the day something inside me snapped. Not my resolve, my naivety. Up until then, some part of me still thought, they're family. Deep down, they'll do the right thing. But now I saw the truth. They weren't blind. They weren't mistaken. They were predators. Entitled, greedy, delusional predators. And predators don't change. I stopped seeing them as my parents and brother. From that day forward, they were just targets. The law wasn't going to save me. Contracts had signatures. Finder's fees weren't illegal. No lawyer was going to touch this without draining me dry. So I started teaching myself. Late nights after my daughter fell asleep, I opened my laptop and dug through public records. Mortgages, liens, lawsuits, property histories. I devoured it all. I signed up for free courses, read forums, learned how money actually moved when people thought no one was watching. I wasn't going to cry about losing my business. I wasn't going to waste time begging them to make it right. I was going to learn their weaknesses. Every debt, every fake investment, every overextended dollar. And when I was ready, I was going to turn every single one of those weaknesses against them. The surgery saved my daughter's life. The scam woke me up. And together, those two things lit the fire that was going to burn their empire to the ground. Up until then, my plan was just survival. Work myself into the ground, scrape together every dollar, maybe claw back some kind of stability for my daughter. It wasn't glamorous, but it was all I had. Then the letter came. It looked ordinary. Plain envelope, return address from a law office I didn't recognize. I opened it at the kitchen table while my daughter was upstairs coloring, and my whole world shifted in 5 minutes flat. It was from my late wife's father's attorney. The old man had passed months earlier. He wasn't flashy about anything. He never had sons, and his daughter, my wife, was everything to him. When she died, he never really recovered. But what he left behind, I wasn't ready for. The lawyer explained his estate was finalized. Since my wife was his only child, everything went to me and my daughter. First, the house. Paid off. 2 stories, decent yard, solid neighborhood. And then, the savings. A personal account with a balance of $850,000. I had to read the number 3 times. 850 grand. Sitting in an account that was now mine. Tucked inside the folder was a note in his handwriting. It was shaky, but the message was steady. I know life without my daughter has been heavy. I can't take that pain away. Take that. But I can give you the tools to protect my granddaughter. Take the house. Take the savings. Use them to build her future. This is my last gift. For a second, my chest locked up. Not out of weakness, out of pure contrast. My own parents had called my daughter a waste of money. But here was her grandfather, making sure she'd never be without a home or stability again. My daughter wandered down the stairs, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, what's that?" I swallowed, folded the note, and smiled. "It's from Grandpa. He gave us a new home." Her eyes widened. "A real house? With stairs?" "Yeah, kiddo," I said. "With stairs." We moved in within a week. The place smelled like old wood and dust, but it was solid. She picked the room with the biggest window and plastered her crayon drawings on the wall. She put her panda on the windowsill like a guard. I set up my stuff in the spare room. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel like it was crushing us. That house wasn't just walls. It was proof. Proof that somebody at least cared about her future. And I swore I'd never sell it, never risk it. This was hers. Always. But the savings? That was different. That wasn't just money. That was a war chest. Right after the surgery, I listed my old apartment. It closed a few weeks later, and I added that cash to the pile. Suddenly, I was sitting on close to $900,000. The kind of capital that changes everything. And I knew exactly where to aim it. I didn't run out and blow it on cars or vacations. I treated it like ammunition. Every dollar was a bullet, and I was loading a gun with their names on it. At night, after my daughter went to bed upstairs, I turned the living room into a war room. Laptop open, papers spread across the coffee table. I dug into public records, mortgage filings, tax liens. It turns out, once you know where to look, people's financial skeletons are just lying there in plain sight. And my family? They had closets full of them. My parents weren't sitting on wealth. They were drowning in loans. A second mortgage they were already laid on. Credit lines pushed to the max. Bills stacking up faster than they could hide them. My brother's business project? Already falling apart. Contractors chasing him for unpaid invoices. Suppliers threatening lawsuits. His little empire was a house of cards. All that bragging, all those toasts, built on nothing. So I went hunting. I reached out to small lending firms, the kind that buy and sell distressed assets. I introduced myself as an investor interested in bad debt portfolios. They were more than happy to show me files of delinquent accounts. And there it was. My parents, my brother, missed payments, overdue balances, foreclosure notices waiting to happen. I started buying, quietly, piece by piece. First, I picked up their second mortgage. Then later, I grabbed the senior note when the bank decided to unload it at a discount. By then, they were already months behind. To them, it looked like the same nameless creditors breathing down their necks. What they didn't know was that those letters, those threats, those penalties, they were mine. I didn't rush it. I wasn't desperate anymore. I had time. I had patience. I could sit in my new house, my daughter safe upstairs, while their rope got tighter every month. They had called my daughter a lost cause. Now I held their cause, their house, their debts, their golden boy's failing empire. Her grandfather's last act of love had given me everything I needed to dismantle them, and I was going to use every last cent. Meanwhile, my brother was busy playing king. If you believed his social media feed, he was already a millionaire. New car every other week, dinners at restaurants where the check probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, rooftop selfies with cheap champagne labeled as Dom. My parents reposted everything, acting like he was the second coming of Rockefeller. In reality, I knew exactly what it was. Smoke and mirrors. The new car was a lease with payments already overdue. His so-called office was a glorified sublet with an eviction notice pinned to the door when you looked closely. The business project he bragged about was a bonfire of cash, with contractors filing complaints because he wasn't paying his bills. I had receipts. Literal ones. I pulled property filings, credit histories, and even some lawsuit records. Every screenshot, every document, every post he made went into a folder I kept neatly labeled. A digital guillotine waiting to drop. But the beauty of it? Nobody else knew. To the outside world, he was the prodigy, the genius, the one who made it. My parents clung to that image like it was oxygen. At family get-togethers, they'd beam with pride. Our son is building something incredible, my mom would say. You should see his investors, my dad would add. Then they'd glance at me with that same condescending smirk they'd worn my entire life. If only you had your brother's vision. I'd just smile back. Because what they didn't realize was that I did have vision. Mine just didn't involve selfies and rented suits. Mine involved legal notices with their names on them. It didn't stop with my parents. My brother started running his mouth to the rest of the family. Cousins, uncles, even neighbors got dragged into his circus. He convinced them to invest in his project, promising sky-high returns. Ground floor opportunity, he called it. Family wealth for generations. Some of them bought in. I heard about one uncle pulling out part of his retirement fund. A cousin wired him $20,000. Even the old neighbor across the street chipped in a small stake. And why wouldn't they? My parents vouched for him, swore he was a genius. They painted me as the bitter one, the failure, the guy who never understood real business. I didn't stop them. Not yet. If they wanted to dump their money into my brother's black hole, fine. Every dollar he swallowed was just more weight dragging him under. Behind the curtain, it was already falling apart. I could see it in the filings. Payment notices turning red. Interest charges snowballing. Creditors marking his accounts as delinquent. I had copies of every one of them. And yet, he doubled down. That's the thing about people like him. When the foundation cracks, they paint the walls instead of fixing the floor. He started posting motivational quotes about trusting the process and temporary setbacks. But he bragged about meetings that never happened and clients that didn't exist. I sat in my war room, her grandfather's house, now my fortress, with my laptop open, flipping between his Instagram feed and the foreclosure notices with his name on them. The contrast was laughable. One night, while my daughter was asleep upstairs, I spread everything out across the table. Bank statements, screenshots, debt files, legal filings. It looked like the blueprint of a collapse, and it was all heading toward one inevitable outcome: ruin. The best part? I didn't even need to touch it. His arrogance was doing all the heavy lifting for me. But I wasn't idle. I was careful, strategic. I documented everything. Screenshots of every flashy post, paired with proof of every unpaid bill. Side by side, they told a story no one could deny once I released it. My parents, meanwhile, acted like royalty. They bragged to neighbors, hosted dinners where they paraded him around, toasted his success. They looked down on me as if I was invisible, and I let them. Because the longer they believed their fantasy, the harder the crash would be. Every insult they threw, every time they told me I should learn from my brother, every sideways glance at family events was fuel. They even started leaving voicemails calling me ungrateful, promising they'd ruin me if I kept exposing their prodigy. I saved every single one. I didn't argue, I didn't fight, I just smiled, nodded, and quietly tightened the leash around their necks. Because here's the truth. Revenge doesn't always look like screaming or punching walls. Sometimes it looks like silence, like patience, like sitting in the dark with a folder full of receipts while your enemies toast their own downfall. The cracks were spreading. Investors were whispering. Suppliers were threatening lawsuits. Payments were bouncing. My brother was scrambling to cover holes he couldn't fill, while still posting online like everything was perfect. And me? I leaned back in my chair, folded my arms, and waited. The predator doesn't need to chase. The prey always trips over its own feet. By the time I was done, the whole neighborhood would know the truth. And my family, the ones who called my daughter a lost cause, would be standing in the rubble of the empire they thought they built. I closed the folder that night, smiled to myself, and whispered, "Almost time." The cracks weren't cracks anymore. They were fractures splitting wide open. My brother's so-called empire was starting to eat itself alive. First came the lawsuits. Contractors filed complaints for unpaid work. Suppliers demanded invoices cleared. Investors who had been promised guaranteed returns were suddenly showing up with lawyers. Then came the silence. His social media, once a non-stop feed of rented cars, rooftop dinners, and motivational quotes, went dark. No more champagne selfies, no more hashtags about the grind, just silence. People noticed. Neighbors who had once nodded proudly when my parents boasted now whispered in hushed tones. Cousins who had poured their savings into his vision started making angry calls. My phone lit up more than once from people asking if I'd heard anything. I didn't answer. Not yet. The real fireworks came when the first official foreclosure notices hit my parents' mailbox. That second mortgage they'd been juggling? The one I quietly bought up? Yeah. My lawyer sent the letter. Pay or lose the house. They didn't pay. They couldn't. By then, I had everything lined up. Screenshots of my brother's lavish posts, copies of unpaid bills, court filings with his name on them, bank notices, the finder's fee scam from when they'd gutted me on my business sale. It was a neat little portfolio. Every lie paired with the truth, every brag next to the bill he ignored. I didn't blast it all at once. I leaked it slowly, methodically. First, I dropped screenshots in the family WhatsApp group, my brother posting about buying a car side by side with documents showing the lease default. Silence followed. Then I sent copies of lawsuits directly to the cousins who had invested. Thought you should know where your money went. I didn't even have to explain. The receipts spoke louder than I ever could. The explosion was nuclear. Relatives turned on my parents overnight. Neighbors who once clapped at their dinner toasts now crossed the street to avoid them. The golden boy was exposed for what he was, a parasite burning through other people's money. And my parents? They scrambled. The first call came from my mom. "Sweetheart, we need to talk. Your brother's had some setbacks." "Setbacks?" I said, leaning back in my chair. "You mean fraud? Lies? Unpaid debts?" She sniffled. "He just needs time. You've been doing well, haven't you? You could help him out." I laughed. "Why would I put my money into something failing? That's not an investment." The silence on her end was delicious. That was their line. Their exact words when I begged them for help with my daughter's surgery. Hearing it thrown back at them, it must have stung like acid. The next call was from my dad. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "Son, listen to me. We're family. Families help each other. We're about to lose everything." I smirked into the phone. "Sounds familiar. Didn't you tell me family isn't about handouts? That real men sell what they have to survive? Guess you better find a buyer quick." His voice rose desperate now. "Don't do this. Think of your brother. Think of us. I cut him off. You didn't think of my daughter when she was on an operating table with a tumor in her head. You thought of return on investment. And now you're just bad stock. Click. They didn't stop there. My brother showed up at my door 2 nights later. No car this time. No smug grin. Just bags under his eyes and desperation dripping off him. You set me up, he hissed. You sabotaged me. Everyone's turning on me because of you. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. No, they're turning on you because you're a fraud. All I did was hold up the mirror. He shoved a finger in my chest. You ruined me. I smirked. No, you ruined yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it. He muttered something about lawyers and stormed off, but I could tell it was all bark. He didn't have a dime left to fight with. Once I held both liens, it was just a waiting game. Months of notices, filings, and trustee sale dates ticked by until the foreclosure clock ran out. Then it all moved forward like clockwork. Every missed payment was another nail in their coffin. And every notice had my fingerprints on it, even if they didn't realize it yet. But they were starting to suspect. My dad called again, voice lower this time. It's you, isn't it? You're behind this. I let the silence hang for a beat, then said, If I were, would you be surprised? He didn't answer. He just breathed heavy, then hung up. Words spread faster than I could have imagined. The same neighbors who once toasted with them were now gossiping at the grocery store about how the great investor family had lost it all. Extended family members cut contact completely. The golden boy wasn't golden anymore. He was just broke. And my parents? They were standing right beside him in the wreckage. The night before the final foreclosure judgment, my mom tried one last time. She came to the house, my house, the one my late wife's father left us, and knocked like a beggar. My daughter was upstairs, so I stepped outside. Her eyes were red, her voice cracking. Please, don't let them take the house. We raised you there. We gave you everything. I stared at her. You gave me nothing. You stole from me when my daughter needed you most. And now you want mercy? Tears rolled down her cheeks. We made mistakes, but this is our home. I pulled the foreclosure notice from my pocket, the one with my name listed as the creditor, and handed it to her. Not anymore. It's mine. She read it, and her face went pale. You? Yeah, I said coldly. I own your debt. I own your house. And tomorrow you'll be standing on the lawn while the neighbors watch. She sobbed. How could you do this to your own family? I leaned in, my voice low and calm. Family is supposed to protect each other. You called my daughter a waste of money. That's when you stopped being family. This is just business. I turned, walked inside, and closed the door. When the order finally hit after the sale, the foreclosure was official. The eviction date got set. My parents and brother finally knew the truth. The failure they mocked, the lost cause they dismissed, was the one holding their leash. And soon, they'd be standing on the curb, watching their empire collapse around them. After the sale wrapped up and the order posted, the eviction date finally landed. Clear skies that morning, the kind of day where the world dares you to pay attention, where the world feels fresh, sharp, like it's daring you to pay attention. I sat in my car across the street, coffee in hand, watching as the moving trucks pulled up to my parents' driveway. A sheriff's deputy nailed the official notice to the front door. Neighbors started trickling out one by one. Some pretended to check their mail. Others leaned against fences, phones in hand. Everyone knew what was happening. This wasn't just paperwork. This was a spectacle. By the time my parents' car rolled up, half the block was watching. They pulled in laughing, shopping bags on the back seat, my brother in the passenger seat like a king without a crown. The laughter died the second they saw their furniture stacked on the lawn. I'll never forget the look on my dad's face. First confusion, then denial, then raw panic as he stormed toward the front door and ripped the paper off. His hands froze when his eyes landed on the name of the creditor. My name. He staggered back like the paper had burned him. My mom dropped her bag, groceries spilling across the driveway. My brother's face twisted from shock to fury in seconds. You! He roared when he spotted me across the street. You did this! He lunged, but two neighbors stepped between us, holding him back. Phones kept recording. This wasn't just my revenge. It was a neighborhood show, and the stars of the meltdown had finally arrived. My mom collapsed against the car, sobbing. How could you do this? Everyone is watching. I sipped my coffee, calm as stone. Funny. Everyone watched when you toasted him with 150 grand while calling my daughter a waste of money. Gasps rippled through the neighbors. People whispered. Some shook their heads. Others laughed bitterly. The golden family image my parents had paraded for years was dissolving in front of them. My dad tried one last bluff, his voice breaking. Son, this is still our home. We raised you here. You can't take that away. I walked across the street, folder in hand, calm, slow. The cameras followed. I handed him the papers, all neatly clipped together. Proof of the finder's fee scam. Proof of their debts. Proof of every threat, every lie, every attempt to destroy me. This isn't your home, I said, my voice low but sharp enough to cut. You forfeited that the day you sold me out and cashed in on my desperation. Now it's just property, and I own it. My brother shouted, "You're a monster!" I smirked. No, I just learned from the best. Silence. Neighbors stared. My mom's sobs turned into wails. My dad dropped onto the curb like his knees gave out. My brother kept thrashing, but nobody moved to help him. He wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was just a liar exposed under sunlight. I turned, showed the crowd my phone, played the recording of my brother, calling my daughter an expense, played the voicemail where they threatened to ruin me. Gasps again. People muttered. The final nail in their social coffin was hammered in. I didn't need to scream, didn't need to argue. The truth did all the work. I handed my dad one last item, a folded pamphlet. The shelter brochure I'd picked up at Legal Aid the night I signed the sale. I kept it in my pocket ever since, a reminder of just how low they'd pushed me. You remember this place? I asked. $10 a night. The same roof I slept under when you called her a lost cause. Might be a good fit for all of you now. He stared at it, trembling. My mom tried to snatch it away, but I pulled it back, tucked it into his shirt pocket myself. This is where you belong, I said flatly. Among people who know what it feels like to have nothing. Because that's all you have left. I walked away before they could answer. Behind me, their shouting turned to silence. Phones kept filming. Neighbors whispered. Some laughed openly. Their empire didn't collapse quietly. It collapsed on a stage, with everyone watching. Weeks later, I stood in the yard of our house. Her grandfather's place. The one I fixed up using the inheritance, plus what I got from selling their foreclosed property. My daughter kicked a soccer ball across the grass, laughing in the sunlight. She didn't ask about her grandparents anymore. Kids are smart. She knew they weren't worth keeping. Word around the extended family was brutal. Cousins who lost money in my brother's business cut them off completely. My aunt still spits his name like poison. Neighbors turned their backs in the grocery store. Their phones don't ring anymore, except with debt collectors. And me? I don't lose sleep over it. They tried to destroy me when I was weakest. They cashed in on my pain. They called my daughter worthless. Now they sit in borrowed rooms, broke, humiliated, blamed by everyone who once cheered for them. They built their empire on my ruin. I built my peace on theirs.